All right, here we go. And we're going live.
I like it when Scott dances.
Not seeing it. I'm trying to find it on the page.
I got a notification. I think we're there.
Okay,
Got a
great.
notification.
Wonderful. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to number 10, believe it or not, 10 weeks in a row of relentless pain and agony of us doing the Hellbent for Horror Takeover through the Women in Horror Film Festival page on Facebook. Thank you so much for everybody coming. And of course, my co-host here, Vanessa Ionta Wright, always here. She's the co-creator of Women in Horror Film Festival as well. And one of the esteemed filmmakers that has been there, Simone Kisiel, is here to speak with us today and just cause all sorts of mayhem. So, hi, Simone.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. You are some of my weirdest friends to talk to, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
Love it.
we're going to have a great time just going wherever the hell we wish on this. And that's basically for anybody who's new to the show, and welcome everybody who's in Facebook live as of right now. We will be answering as many questions as we can from you. Feel free to reach out and put those in the chat area or the comments section in Facebook Live. But if you haven't been here before, we're going to basically essentially come up with our own version of what it's like after hours at conventions and film festivals. We're all missing the convention and film festival. It says Hellbent for Horror is live, not, oh, I wonder if did I make a mistake and put it on,
Maybe.
I'm going to check my page because I'm not seeing us live. Let's see, Hellbent for Horror. I apologize, everybody. In the middle of a sentence, I just kind of nodded out because I'm having a hard time finding our show. Are you seeing us?
I can see it on.
Paused.
It is paused.
It's
It-
paused.
It
For some
appeared to
reason,
stop.
but
Hold on one second. Let me see if we're gonna rewind, folks. We'll be right back. Who knows what this is all about? Okay, so I'm just gonna keep us going because I don't want to stop the recording.
yeah.
But I do want to get us where we're live in the right place. That's really bizarre. Live on Facebook, which means I have to do the whole darn thing again, right? Choose
That's
what a
okay. It'll be
poster.
just a moment.
Yeah.
A moment.
Women in Horror Film Festival. There we go. It should be showing up. Well, hopefully we'll do this correctly this time. Don't let the old man in charge of the technical. It just turns into a nightmare. I'm surprised we haven't had more problems, quite honestly.
Well, don't say that.
Yeah, probably not the right time to bring it up, right? Okay, there we go. I see
I'm
us.
just thankful. All I'm in charge of is the music, and that makes me sweat.
Meanwhile, you make whole movies.
Right.
But not live. Forget it. Could you
That-
imagine doing live television?
That is true. The most stressful production thing I've ever done is doing the technical live shows at YouTube for the Young Turks. I was the technical director, so I'm cutting live. And I was I just to let everyone know I'm completely not educated in how to do this, and we're winging it.
And here we go. We're going to go live now.
We used to do that in college, and I would start crying.
Oh my gosh, that's not good.
My professor would just stand behind me with a rolled up paper, and he would get ready to. He was like, "You can do this," and I'm like, "No, I cannot do it. Too much pressure."
Okay, I see that we're up. We're up. We're up on.
Did we do it?
We are up live. Are you seeing us on Women in Horror?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Yep,
Thank you.
there it is.
All right,
there
folks.
It is.
Sorry if you had a hard time trying to find us. I'm hoping that you're all here, and we're not all there, but we're doing our best. And as mentioning before, we have Simone Kisiel here, a famed filmmaker who's been at Women in Horror Film Festival. She made a great movie called Bugs, a Trilogy, and I believe I went on and on about it at one point, why I thought it was really intriguing and exciting, a really good use of metaphor for bugs as the way that invasive species and bugs and parasites in how we deal with people's traumas, specifically women's traumas, and how we do or do not believe them. So it was really a very cool and exciting film for me to watch. And Simone, we're here, we're live. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be on your show.
Yes. Sorry, everybody, for
be so much fun.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody, for the bad start. I ended up being the goofy old man who doesn't know how to work technology.
It's fine. Scott and I got lost on the way to the whiff page.
we ended up lost, but we're back, and thank you everybody who's out there watching us, and anybody who is on. Hello, Carrie Yates. Good to see you again. Always great to have you participate in our show. And anybody else who decides to come on, we will be taking a look at your questions in the comments spot in the live version, the Facebook Live page of Women in Horror Film Festival. And we are also going to be, dependent upon how things go, if you decide you want to come in, we are going to break that fourth wall one more time and have you folks come on in and join the party. As mentioned before, this is our version, our reenactment of what we're all missing right now because we cannot go to conventions and film festivals. It's that after hours stuff. Once the bars close, they tell you can't stick around, or you're not done talking to all the people that you've met at the convention. You want to hang out, and we find all sorts of areas, usually someone's room that we can trash, and we spend time talking and enjoying each other's company for a couple more hours. That's kind of what we're doing here, and if you want to join us on that, you can. We will be posting the link in a little bit of how to get into the Zoom discussion. However, let me give you a few of the rules. You must have your video and audio turned on to join. If you're going to be on here and you're going to talk to us, we want to see the whites of your eyes. And any negging, hate speech, general ass hattery will get you booted from the show. And of course, it's a catch as catch can. Request to join the live Zoom it's really dependent on time, available openings, our energy at the moment, all of that. Hey, it's free, folks. Give us a break. So,
that's right.
Let's see.
Yes. Carrie said, currently doing a woman's horror, ironing.
Oh.
Why is that just women's horror?
I don't own an ironing board.
I haven't ironed. Listen, if something requires ironing, I don't need to own it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Same goes for dry clean only. I don't even understand that. Yeah. The disposable. Goodbye.
I was in the military, so I learned how to iron a lot. And I learned how to iron without an ironing board, like just any flat surface, and just towels from your bathroom. And boy, it was anyway.
It's like you can do like ironing tricks.
I can. Well, we used to do ironing tricks in the military because they used to come in and inspect your underwear. Yes, believe it or not, grown men coming in to inspect your underwear. So they used to have where you had to fold your underwear into 4x4 squares. So everybody that I knew pretty much took a huge amount of starch, took a ruler and made a 4x4 square of one pair of underwear that you would never wear, but you would always display at the top. So it was basically an accoutrement of the room, but you could probably have stuck it into the wall like a Chinese throwing star. But
that's great. Would you ever like prank each other by putting like extra pleats in your pants?
Oh, we
wild stuff.
That would be tame for what we used to do. We can't really speak about some of the things that we actually did at that point. In fact, some of them we have to is why I can never run for office. But
I love it.
Anyway,
my mom is here joining us.
Oh,
as
yeah.
Well. Hello, Gloria.
Now's the time to really go.
Chimed in and said, "And stapler as a sewing machine." Okay,
Nice.
that is a nod to something that I did in college. I took a costuming class. I did not use the sewing machine, so I stapled my final project together.
I've done that. I've done that
Yeah, well,
for my cuffs when I was really not very rich, or not that I'm rich now, but I didn't have much money and I had to wear something.
so no cufflinks. You would just staple your
Yep, I
sleeves.
just stapled. I'm like, God damn it, I don't have anything, and this is
That's
frayed.
classy. Simone, what have you done that's weird with clothing?
I've definitely stapled clothes together in the past. That feels not even weird though.
No, I feel like that's almost kind of common practice. If you're like, what do I do? Staple it.
Yeah. I mean, I need it to fuse together right now, and I need to go do the thing that we're doing right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but like with clothes, I hate pants or anything that presses on my belly. Yeah, I hate it. So quarantine has actually been a pretty good time for me.
Lots of dresses or big shirts.
Yeah, just no pants. Yeah.
I promote no pants. I'm usually I'm a supporter of no pants no matter what time or what plague. If there's no plague.
The fun part is that you can only see us from like kind of the waist up. So
you don't know
are
if
we
I'm
wearing
wearing
pants or not?
I'm just sitting on an egg carton.
I love it.
Middle of nowhere. With these backgrounds, you can be anywhere. So I did want to ask Simone, what I usually ask people when they first come in is if you were a horror fan all your life, or if it was something that happened because of the availability of being able to make a horror film as a director, and if you were a full-time lover of horror when you were a kid, what was your first kiss? What was the movie that made you go down this horrible path?
I love this question so much, and I love answering it when you ask it. I believe that I've done this before, but my first kiss was definitely when I was about 7 or 8, and I watched the original Mummy, not the Brendan Fraser, the original Mummy with my dad. I thought the whole thing was sort of silly until the scene where the mummy gets up and leaves, and we can see just like the little toilet paper roll like go like crosses the frame, and then the dude comes, whoever left comes back, and the guy who's guarding the mummy, we never see the mummy, we just see the guy's reaction, and he cracks on camera. He's like, he took a walk. And so I was like, oh my God, you don't have to show the monster for me to feel the fear of the. I was like that was the scariest thing that I'd sort of encountered. So my first kiss was all the old monster movies with my dad. I particularly love the original Mummy and Creature from the Black Lagoon. And as I got older, the second sort of influence on horror was my older brother. He tricked me into watching The Shining when I was very young. Sort of similarly also tricked me into watching The Descent with his friends. I was probably like 12.
Nice.
Yeah. And so they were like, wouldn't it be funny if like the 9 or 10-year-old watches this and she doesn't know what she's getting into. And of course I didn't want to like bail out. So there's really that. And the other standout is I went to a double feature with my brother. And by that, I mean, my parents dropped us off and were like, please enjoy 2 movies. We're paying for 1. That's
how you do. That's how it goes.
90s. Yeah. And so the first movie we saw was The Sixth Sense. And
yes,
the scene, and this scene, I was just talking to my parents about this when I was visiting them. This scene has influenced so much of my work in that it's the thing that's behind the door. It's not the thing that you see, and it's very similar to the Mummy. So the scene where he's at the little kid's at the party, and he's like he hears something upstairs, and he goes upstairs, and there's like that it's like a dumbwaiter like little room, and you can hear something behind it, and then the mean kids lock him inside. The scene that made me walk out of that theater and stand in the lobby for the next hour and 15 or so minutes was him behind the door, just the shot of the door being banged on, and the kids screaming, and the other kids like, is this bad? And like that. So it's that unknown behind the door, or like the mummy that walked away that I didn't see, and that I think is a thread throughout all of my work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that my love for the early horror films, the Universal horror films, is that they did such a great job of introducing the monsters. How you mentioned the Mummy is a great one. I love Frankenstein. The first time you see him up, it's his back. He's at the door. And our famed doctor is looking over, and he's just like this, and it turns. And at that point, there's no such thing as stingers and musical interludes and everything. They're just going with what they know of cinema. And so he turns around, and there's something so creepy and terrifying that there is no musical reveal. No, it's just like dead, like he's dead. And it's just so freaking creepy. And I love the Creature from the Black Lagoons intro, which is just like so terrifying when you're a kid, that big close-up that's there. And I love that. And I love that you said that you had a brother that put you in a situation of having to watch The Shining, and you didn't want to
chicken out.
Chicken out. Thank you. Couldn't think of the word. Rooster out. Yeah, that works. But,
Sure.
Sandwich. But yeah, so I had the same kind of thing, but it was for music. I was really a scaredy cat, and everybody that knows me knows that even though I loved horror, I would have nightmares all the time. So my dad was always like monitoring what my horror intake would be. And I was growing up at the time when like Alice Cooper was coming out and Black Sabbath was coming out. This is all new. Right. So we're just getting over like the Manson murders. So all of a sudden hippies are scary, and everybody's talking about, backward masking and music and everything. And so that stuff's creepy, evil. And my family's fundamentalist Christian, so I'm not supposed to be listening to anything like that. I remember I listened to like Styx's Renegade at the house, and my stepmother went, "Well, now we're Satanists, I guess." Like Styx. But, it was this whole thing. And my uncle, instead of having an older brother, I'm the oldest. At one point during my parents' divorce, I was living at my grandmother's, and he had an attic bedroom. And so I would go up there because I wanted to hang out with him. And he was only about 10 years older than me, and all his friends were there. And so they're playing all this, tough guy music. I'm like 10, or no, I'm younger than that. And he's in his teens. And he goes, "Hey, you like scary music? I hear you like scary movies. You want to listen to scary music?" And he pulls out Black Sabbath, the original Black Sabbath album. And that has this really creepy picture of this witch. Like, and it's, oh man. So I'm looking at, all I had to do was see the album cover. And I'm like, I'm terrified, but there's like no way I'm going to let him know. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to listen to this whole thing. And the first song is Black Sabbath, which has rain and the first tritone ever heard. And I'm like going, oh my God. And I made it through. He goes, all right, that's cool. And then he puts on Paranoid. So I'm just like dumped on. But that actually became my favorite type of music, and that's what horror has always done for me in whatever form, whether it be book, TV, plays, movies, music, whatever that horrific thing is, getting past it, surviving it is like a challenge that is a survival skill that suddenly makes me feel better. And I tend to go towards movies that creep me out, the ideas that they have that creep me out. Did any of you, speaking of creep out, I just watched a movie that was on Shudder called Beach House, The Beach House. Have either of you
heard of this? Not yet.
It's a debut film by I'm forgetting his name. I think I want to say James W. Brown or something like that. It's his first film.
Sure.
What a great first film.
Jeffrey A. Brown.
Jeffrey A. Brown. Okay.
Close. You were close. You win.
Ooh,
a prize.
It is it's right up my wheelhouse. So one of the things that I love is I love movies, horror films that talk about like folk horror. In other words, nature as part of the horror that we don't understand. That there may not really be a supernatural. It's that we know so little about nature. Nature itself is so super. And there's an area somewhere in the woods that's physics no longer exists if you go deep enough. That whole idea. And there's a bunch of guys that I like. And this movie kind of falls.
That is why I stay inside.
That's why you don't camp. Camp. Physics always works in your house. Yeah, lucky you.
Yeah, in my area.
But there is some really creepy stuff that happens in that, and it's super subtle. It's a slow burn film, and then when it starts getting creepy, it really just hits you, and it hits on my anxieties of like just being somewhere where all of a sudden something's wrong with the air and nobody knows that there's anything wrong with the air, but you're breathing, and little do you know, you're slowly killing yourself or you're hallucinating. And, you know, that whole Lovecraftian thing that happens in like Color Out of Space and things like that.
So being that most of us have been locked down, Scott, you watched The Beach House recently. Simone, what's been on your like watch list? Have you discovered anything kind of new or new to you? You binged anything? Like what's caught you?
I feel like I've binged all the horror like television shows previously. I was too prepared for this quarantine. I watched all the TV content. So I've been in like this weird doll kick. It started with the first boy movie, The Boy.
Oh,
How was that? Did you enjoy that?
I mean,
it's funny.
Yeah, we watched it because we were like, this is going to be terrible and hilarious. And I actually thought it was like, it was fun. It was fun. I liked it. But yeah, no, it wasn't like a good movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, like no.
Yeah.
So with the same person, we thought it'd be funny to watch The Boy 2. It's just like, why not continue watching this weird garbage?
Right.
And The Boy 2 was a lot better. But I must have blacked out at the end because I can't remember how it ends. So if anyone's seen Boy 2, I need to know how it ends because I'm not rewatching it.
Yeah. It's not quite worth a rewatch.
Yeah, so that's a question for the group. If you know what happens at the end of Boy 2, I really need to know. But the other thing was that new Chucky movie with Mark Hamill voicing Chucky.
Oh, yes, yeah.
It was good. I mean, I feel like they worked really hard to make the Chucky doll like uncanny valley scary. Like it was, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, it didn't look like a doll anymore. It looked like a cartoon, sort of like an animated.
Was this the remake?
The new Child's Play.
The new one. Okay.
Yeah. It's not called Chucky. It's Child's Play. Yeah.
I don't know. I have
Chucky Takes Manhattan. Chucky on ice.
Chucky.
Oh, if only.
Chucky in space.
Yeah. Why not? We had Jason.
Well, Pinhead went to space. That's when you know. The franchise is done.
Yes.
So they go to space.
We have a couple people commenting and some interesting comments. So we have Carrie Yates watched the new Kevin Bacon film, which I'm actually interested in seeing because it's directed by the same guy that did Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, I liked that.
I really like Stir of Echoes. That was off of, I believe, oh my goodness, Richard Matheson novel. I don't know about the new one, and I'm forgetting the name of it. So You Should Have Left or something like that. I think.
Yeah.
And I'm interested because I really thought that film was very well made, Stir of Echoes. And I thought,
that was
very
spooky.
He was really, really good at doing the creepy moments. What I like, the idea of liminal space where you don't necessarily see the horror. It cuts right before, right after the horror. And you're stuck with this strange feeling of cognitive dissonance that you're scared, but you haven't seen exactly what it is. A really good movie for that was The Ritual, where they would like cut on halfway attacks by the beast. And it was like, wow, did I just see that? Did I not? And so I'm really interested to see what's happening on that. I also see that Brian Scootle, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, The Beach House was really good. Also got to interview Brown and his producer. And it was a great discussion. So wonderful. I'd be interested to find out where Brian comes from because, or not Brian, Jeffrey Brown. I'd love to find out what his background is because I know that it's his first film. It feels like he's worked in film before. It doesn't feel like it's a first person's first attempt. It feels like he's been around a set a little bit. And I love that he used some good veteran actors. And James LeGros' son is in it. And he's really freaking uncanny. Because you talk about Uncanny Valley. He looks like James LeGros, but he doesn't look like James LeGros. And it's kind of strange because I remember when James was really young in his first movies. And there's anyway, let's see, Cursed Films. K. Wayne Thornley brings up Cursed Films, and I think we've talked about this before, but that's a really good set of documentaries, and I do need to see about getting in touch with the director of that, because I have some questions about what his thoughts were on Cursed Films.
Yeah, I watched that. And I was kind of, it was interesting because they were all like different lengths. Like, I think the one on The Crow was like 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know. It was way shorter than the other segments. And I was like, hello? I'm still waiting for some more information.
I thought it was the same length, but maybe it was, they didn't give you a lot. I think that was the thing about The Crow.
Something felt, I was like, it's over, there's credits, what happened?
Yeah, some of them were rather ornate, like the Omen one. They are obviously fans of the Omen, and they went into everything. And what I loved was how they talk about Cursed Films, but he's also kind of what's that called? Deconstructing the idea of the Cursed Film. So he has psychologists on it. At one point, he has a psychologist who shows this video. And he says, watch this video, and it's men and women in black shirts and men and women in white shirts on a basketball court. And they're passing basketballs between each other. And he goes, what your job is to count how many times people with the same color shirt are passing the ball to each other.
The gorilla thing.
Yep, the gorilla. And in the center, he goes, how many of you saw the gorilla? And I saw the gorilla, but I could see how you might miss it while you're sitting there being focused on the shirts and on the basketball. Because the gorilla doesn't come out and dance. He just comes out and walks and stands there. He's kind of the same color as the black shirts. But I noticed him, but several people did not. And so it's a great way to look at what we perceive in films. And then he talked of... talk about the films that are horror films where people died, then talk about the films that are not horror films where people died, and then talk about horror films where people didn't die, and movies that aren't horror films where people didn't die. And those are 4 boxes. And you'll find that there's something in each of those boxes to talk about, but we focus on one box, which is scary movie where people die. And you'll find that people die all the time in all kinds of films and comedies. People it takes a year to make a fucking film. So sooner or later, something happens like that.
Sometimes longer.
Yeah, sometimes much longer.
Especially now, my goodness. What are people doing?
So that's a great question. So Simone, Vanessa, I know Vanessa, you're working on a Western. And you're thinking about putting that together during this time. We're in the world of pandemics. And I think, Simone, you're trying to put something together as well. How are you guys navigating this craziness?
You go.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we're following all the guidelines that have been put out by New York and for the film industry in particular, and mostly just doing what we were already doing, but to an extreme. Keeping everybody safe on set is always a top priority. So it's just exaggerating all the things that we were normally doing and adding on like masks and extra sanitizer and like a holding area that's outside and like things like that. There's extra contracts to sign, that's for sure.
Yes.
It's sort of, I'm finding the experience very similar to the normal experience, just exaggerated in many, many ways.
Yeah, I think everyone's just like very what's the word I'm looking for? Like hyper
vigilant.
Maybe. Like it's not, I mean, obviously safety should always be the top priority, but I think it's going to be a lot more scrutinized to make sure that whoever's going to be on set feels comfortable being on set, and that they're going to be looking everywhere at everything. Down to like, I know crafty, everything has to be individually packaged, food that's out that can be, touched or bothered. And I think, I don't know if this is nationwide or statewide, but like, I think catering might have to be like boxed meals, or they don't want multiple people if it's buffet style. So there would have to be like a single person.
No buffet unless you've got a server.
Right.
Yeah.
No more tureens of soup where everybody just comes and goes.
Right. The usual, where it's dig in.
I typically cook. I don't hire caterers.
Yeah.
I cook like a big, like it's taco day, or like here's the chili. Like, so it's been a weird experience finding craft services because I usually do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been, and I will say, I almost don't want to give away the secret because everyone's going to rush out, but everyone should have access to this. But there's a store called like Ollie's Bargain, I don't know, something.
Cans of sardines.
It's like an Odd Lots or Big Lots, if you guys know those stores.
Yep, I know Big Lots.
Well, I just went today because there's no limit on how much you can buy, and they're sold in like, I should show a picture if I knew how to. They come in like it looks like a vodka bottle. It's distilled. It's hand sanitizer.
Oh, okay.
And you can buy like a liter of it for $6. So I bought a ton of it. Because you can put that in spray bottles and just have them all over the set. And just
that cracks me up. That reminds me of like The Simpsons, where they did a thing on when Costco first came out. And it's like, wow, $4. That's great for 50 pounds of nutmeg.
Yeah.
That's a great
Ollie's
price.
Bargain Outlet. Thank you. Somebody just commented. Simone, somebody's got a question for you.
Yes.
Let's see. How would the pandemic, how is this written?
Yeah. How would the pandemic
what
fit
is it?
into your Bugs film?
Yeah. If you were to have a segment, how would that have played, you think, into Bugs?
Well,
Talk about a superbug.
Yeah, the virus that kills you. I don't know. Reality is very strange. No,
Spit.
one of the pervasive themes in Bugs is as you mentioned earlier, Scott, the reporting of symptoms or an occurrence or somebody or something doing something to you and not being believed. And that's true in all three parts of it. Being concerned about an invisible enemy, which the virus is, and having it be possible to infect you, get you, even if you're being careful and you're doing the right things, and then it wreaks havoc on you from the inside and you can't get the help that you need. Like that, the movie pretty much already is that. It would almost be like, well, that's a bit on the nose, a bit. Like, it's like, did you pick a pandemic? Oh yes, I see what you've done there. Like, and that,
Yeah.
And like, like the world that I was trying to present, the vision that being a woman in reality is often very scary, fits very nicely in with being a human being in the United States in particular right now with the virus. Mm-hmm. It's very scary just to live.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So one of the things that I've been, everybody that I talk to and I discuss this with is talking about the pandemic, that one of the things that I think makes it so strange is that there's a cognitive dissonance that's going on. The cognitive dissonance, in my opinion, is that we are at something that feels like it may be the end of the world in some ways, but we're still able to get takeout. And so there's this whole thing where we have it doesn't make sense. The two things don't work. We have this forcing of a reality of normalcy when there is no normal. And that feels like a great horror film in and of itself. I'm interested to find out what you guys have seen in cognitive dissonance. I have one that has to do with baseball. So they just started, and I thought it was the dumbest thing ever, but they started the Major League Baseball season. America's pastime, you need it, right? And I was like, no, I'm a big baseball fan, but I'm like, write this fucking season off. First off, it's half a season. It's always going to be an asterisk. And who the hell wants to go see this thing? Right. And so they did it. And I watched this surreal fucking thing, which is an empty stadium. It's the Oakland A's versus the San Francisco Giants. It's a hometown thing, empty stadium. But people were able to buy cardboard cutouts of themselves that would then be put in the seats behind home plate for the televising of this. And they had the sound of cheers and grumbles and mumbles that you would normally have in a thing piped in over the PA. While professionals that they're playing the game and they're in the dugout with masks on because their entire livelihood is their bodies. So they're going to have shots. They're going to have everything right there for them. And I'm like, this is madness. talk about wanting to whistling in the dark, right? We are so whistling in the dark at this moment that I was watching it. I'm going, is this satire? Is Christopher Guest in charge of Major League Baseball at this
I
point?
hope so.
It was
That
true.
would be amazing.
Yeah, I was
Sign
like,
me up.
I couldn't believe it. It's like, oh yeah, you can buy you can get the cardboard cutout and put it there so that they can see you. And the team, the players actually voted to, let's have the sound of cheers and stuff. And I was like, this feels so sad. This feels worse than not having it.
Can you choose like the expression and the pose of your cardboard cutout? Because if it was just like terrible looks like,
right.
Coughing.
Everybody's dead.
That I might get behind.
They're all skeletons.
Instead of everyone going, I don't know, what's like a frozen look of cheering?
I'm like, I can't even think. I can see that these guys love the game, right? They'd play it for free. That's what you hear. And I agree. Yeah. I think that they would. But I would think that they would not want to play it this way because it's still the game that matters to them. And it's different than just play at home, for fuck's sake. But going to the stadium, taking the chance of getting hurt, and it's not even preseason stuff. Like if you're in preseason baseball, which doesn't count, you're in Scottsdale, Arizona. There are people in the parking lot eating sandwiches, and maybe there's 500 people, right? Mm-hmm. And it's got this down home kind of feel. Well, that's more realistic than piping in. I mean, it's just crazy. And Chrissy, that's an interesting point. Do they love the game or do they love the millions of dollars? I believe that they love the game. I think they also love the millions of dollars. I don't think it's an either or choice. I think you get to have an and in that spot. What I usually say about—
How much does it cost to put your cutout?
Oh, $1 million. No, I don't know. I didn't look. I would assume it's probably something like $29.95 or $49.95.
And you're there all season or just for one game?
I have no idea.
I have so many questions.
I'd love to see what a rain delay. That would be like.
Oh no!
We're gonna have a rain.
Are they laminated or?
Are they waterproof?
No idea. I think they should have like ejector seats, like
for $29.99.
To be shooting up.
These aren't going to be your top of the line.
I have no idea. I do know that they have there's like a company called Fathead, and
I know Fathead.
Yeah, so Fathead used to actually have where I really miss that we're not watching football anymore. I sure would love to have Brady in my bedroom. Look, Brady in my bedroom.
I've got Ezekiel Elliott in my son's room.
There you go. So
we're all about the Fathead.
They all understand Fathead. So I'm assuming this is like a Fathead thing. And that's something that
they do not endorse our show, by the way.
Right. We don't. I have to watch that kind of thing, right? Because I was thinking about how we would go forward with conventions and film festivals. And one of the big things, I mean, you can do so many bits of it somewhat virtual and come up with good ways. But what about vendors? Which is such
one more question about the baseball.
Okay.
So, you know how like when regular people get hit with the ball, if your cardboard cutout gets hit, do you win something? Do you get something?
Yeah, because you win something when you're hit with a ball in real life.
Usually you get the ball and then you get 15 minutes of coverage, right? You get you
get a lawsuit, maybe. You get
maybe. I'm just
you get seams on your head.
I feel like there's potential here for some extra fun.
I think so too. I think they should have like a tractor that they put a rope to all of and they let you run the bases by having the tractor drag your cardboard cutouts.
Oh, baseball just got way more fun.
I watched that.
Yeah, It's like it just blows
I want to
my
help
mind.
make it.
Yeah. It blows my mind. It's like nation's pastime, that whole thing. And it just feels, it reminds me of, once again, 2 Simpsons references in one show. It's very much like a Simpsons episode that was in the 90s. I don't know if you remember when there was that whole thing of caning that was happening. There was an American who screwed up, I think I want to say it was Hong Kong or something, and they were going to cane him.
Yeah.
And it became this whole thing of like, is
I do
that
remember
torture? And it became this big deal. Well, they satirized that on Simpsons by having Bart do something in Australia, and he destroyed something, and so they were going to kick him with this big boot, and they bring out this huge boot.
Oh, Bart.
And so they the Simpsons go and hide in the American embassy. And so they have this moment where they're, don't worry, everybody, you're in the American embassy now. You're completely safe because you're Americans. And they go to the bathroom, and the toilet's there with all these weird devices, all these engines and belts and everything on it. And so they flush the toilet, and it starts swirling because it's underneath the equator, right? In the counterclockwise. And all of a sudden, all the engine parts start going, blah, 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 and the water's bubbles, and then it starts spinning in the American way. and Homer goes, oh, beautiful force. Guys. I'm like, oh my God, we're there. We're there.
Oh,
we're
so much. Now, Simone, you're young. So do you TikTok? Do you got the TikTok to understand it?
No, I'm not young. I'm 31. Is that young?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you. Okay, then I'm young. And no,
yeah.
I don't TikTok.
My daughter,
do that.
Extra young, sharing about the TikTok. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but since he brought up The Simpsons, she keeps coming to me. She's like, Mommy, The Simpsons like predict everything. Did you know this? And I was like, no, I had no idea. Like Matt Groening had this kind of power. What do you mean? What are they predicting? And she's like, I guess it's become like this huge trend online. And if somebody has heard about this, please share links and tell me where to look, because I don't really understand TikTok yet. But yeah, like all of these major events apparently have happened way before in a Simpsons episode.
Yeah. I didn't religiously watch The Simpsons, so I'm like,
I didn't either, but should we? Should we go back and like, should we now watch the new ones to be like, what the fuck is going to happen?
I mean, if they hold the answers, then I require the answers immediately. So it's like,
yes, it has the answers. Like this was, I mean, crazy ones. Like I guess there was one that actually had Kobe Bryant, I guess, dying in a helicopter accident.
Died, yeah.
And I'm like,
didn't it predict the Trump presidency?
Yes, and his,
I mean, like, how can you do that? Yeah.
Which, you know, I mean, I don't want to say anything publicly, but, you know,
I don't know.
Something was to happen, I'll hear about it.
Yeah, like Brian says, The Simpsons are prophets.
Yeah. Okay, Brian, do you know, like, do you know more things? Because there's so much on that. Like, apparently, like, 9/11 and all of these other
we need answers, Brian.
And of course, The Simpsons have been on for like, I don't know, 40 years or something ridiculous.
I know, isn't it crazy?
Yeah, well, it holds the key to the universe.
Apparently. And Brian.
So much happened since you were gone, Scott.
I'll bet. I had to go walk the dog.
Oh, that's fun too. I like that phrase.
Simpsons is creepy as it reveals the possible future. Yeah. Well, satire, I mean.
Or real future.
Yeah. There's farce, which they're big on, comedy, of course, but then there's satire, which is not always the funniest parts of it, but that's where they're very prophetic. And and it is interesting where they go. Really smart writers in that.
Yeah.
When I was talking about baseball, I was talking about cognitive dissonance and how that plays into horror. And
I think I took you off the rails.
Kind of what
is important.
Yeah, kind of what I think we're feeling in the pandemic. Do you guys have anything that is happening in your lives that you've seen recently where you're like, wow, this is where the normal is no longer normal, but everybody's trying to pretend that it's normal?
I feel like I'm really desensitized to all the just bizarre, like I'm like, well, of course that's completely strange and different. The thing that comes to mind is people are doing plays on Zoom. And as a former actor myself, I'm not sure, like, you know, okay, so we see like the Daily Show hosts and Stephen Colbert, these people are doing their shows from home, and they've said repeatedly on their shows that it's very difficult to do these shows without their audience.
Right.
So I can't imagine doing a play and it's not without your audience, you're an actor. Because even though we can see each other, there's a lot of human cues that we're missing. Like a screen is not how we see each other. So there's cognitive dissonance involved in even just this, because it feels like you're talking to somebody in person, but you're not. And so your brain is getting these. So I'm just really curious how actors manage that, and if it's possible, or even if it's like palatable to watch. Like I imagine it might be kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want me a Coke? Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, even, you know, with this, like Scott and I have kind of like goofed around, like doing little promos and stuff, because obviously he's in California and I'm in Georgia, but like we'll kind of play around trying to act like, even though our windows are next to each other, that we're like in the same room. But
I love that.
I mean, but you feel that, like it would be like this, honestly, I think would feel much different if we were in, say, a recording booth, the three of us together,
right.
or sitting, you know, just across from each other on a table, or, you know, as we all want, like, yeah, at the end of the night after the bar, sitting in a lounge talking.
Yeah,
but
watching the sun come up because you're in
this
that spot.
is what we're stuck with. And, you know, it's sad, because I think there's going to be an entire generation that this might be what they know and what they remember. I hope it goes back something, but I think there's going to be some things that change forever. And I don't know what those things are. The Simpsons might know.
The birthday candles on cakes are going to be gone forever.
Right.
Yeah, you can't blow
no more
cake.
breathing, spitting on communal cake.
No.
Yeah, that was something that somebody brought up as well. That, like, do you remember the innocent time when we used to let people blow on cakes and, you know, all of this stuff? And it's like, yeah, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see where we go with that kind of thing. But the very idea of what you're talking about with the play is kind of like with the baseball players. You know, you're doing this game where the audience, the fans, are part of the experience. That's how you can, if you're going to rally, if you're behind and all. I mean, how do you get yourself up for, wow, here we go? Like I remember watching early on in the pandemic, they were still allowing people to be together. So there was I want to say it was the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. They did a live show, and all it was the band, and it was like one or two cameramen, and it was like a rehearsal for them. They started out all excited, but you know, if you're a rock and roll star or you're a band, you're playing off of the audience. And if there's no audience, after a while, it was just like they're just kind of walking. You know, they're trying to still, you know, they're doing all the things that you assume they do every night. Okay, by this moment in this song, we're going to twist and turn, you know, and we're going to have backs to each other. And so they did that. But any of the spontaneity and any of the energy that you would normally get off of an audience wasn't there. I was like, man, that's going to be, you know, crazy.
Well, you know, and I think if we kind of circle back to film, you know, it's like a lot of these films, you know, theaters aren't up and running. We're not going to the, you know, movies. And, you know, specifically talking about horror, you know, outside of seeing any other type of film, there is something to seeing, you know, a horror movie with an audience and kind of feeding off all of that nervous, fun energy, you know, with whoever's in there with you. I mean, you know, you go in with, I mean, I don't know how many seats are in a theater, you know, 100 and some odd strangers, but by the end of the film, it's kind of like you've shared an experience, you know, you've shared these emotions, and you don't have that. And similarly, I think that's happening with film festivals. You know, I think the beauty of a lot of film festivals, especially for filmmakers, is to be at the event, to watch your film with an audience and see how people react, to network, to talk about it. And we're losing a lot of that because it's not safe to do it, and so they're going online. And
yeah, I mean, like I had mentioned that a Theory of Film night happened a couple weeks ago, and it was it went pretty well without a hitch, because a lot of it was pre-recorded, you know, Q&As with the directors of the different films. You were able to go there. There were paywalls for that, and you know, some of the movies were on Shudder. I think all of the movies were allowed to be on Shudder, even though they were film festival films. So they got a viewing that they wouldn't normally get. they wouldn't be allowed, or you wouldn't be able to afford it, whatever it might be. A lot of times people aren't allowed to let people see their films because they're in a film festival. And yet there was a dispensation that happened for Shudder. And so I thought that was a good thing. But I also believe that there's a difference, and we can talk about this a little bit, the difference between movies that play better on TV, movies that play better in theaters. Because in my book, I talk about how it's a communal thing. It's like a tent revival. When you're there for when a movie gets its gold, its wings. If you happen to have been there when, like I was there for the first night of Raiders of the Lost Ark. They had previews, Saturday morning matinee. Yeah. And I was there with my dad and one of my best friend at the time. And there were only like 4 other people in the theater because nobody knew what it was. Just said Raiders of the Lost Ark, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg. That sold me and it sold my friend. And we're sitting there watching this movie and we're like going, this is a miracle. This movie's a miracle. Nobody knows about it in this town right now. This is amazing. And it was such a bonding thing. But then I went to see it again with a full audience and people roaring and, rolling in the aisles of anticipation. That is like a religious event. And there's something about being able to have a bunch of strangers laugh, cry, cheer at the same time.
Yeah.
And
I 100% agree. And I think, a lot of people are kind of missing that. And it's, is it going to come back? I don't know. There's a lot of, specifically to movies, I know there's a lot of productions that have kind of indefinitely been put on hold that, people were really anticipating the release and being finished and coming out. But
I'm saddened that the people who will probably survive will be like Lowe's and the big chains. But the smaller ones, the theaters like the Roxy and stuff in San Francisco, they may not make it. And I wish it was the opposite. But I have a feeling that what we're going to get is more of the I think there'll be less theaters. I think we're going to lose quite a bit of movie theaters, but I think we're going to have these huge plexes. And I'm not necessarily sure that that's the best way to go, because we've gone through plagues before, and plays didn't disappear, opera didn't disappear, figure skating didn't disappear. None of that has. So I don't see entertainment going away, but I think that we're going to have certain things that are going to be minimized. Like I think the amount of conventions, there's going to be a huge cleaving of that, and some of it is. I think controversial right now, like Days of the Dead had their con in Indianapolis, and that has gotten a lot of bad rap. And I mean, it was crazy to do, and then I guess they didn't do it well, and that's even worse. But that's like I almost not that I think that that's a good idea, but I can see where desperation. You're not going to get your money back. You're doing something like Days of the Dead, which has a huge amount of money to it, but it probably pays out a huge amount beforehand. And then you're kind of stuck. But they went on when most of their stars canceled.
Yeah, they had a huge cancellation, I think, at the last minute, like, I don't know, 15 celebs. And then from what I understand, I don't know for sure, because again, I'm just reading Facebook chatter. But the Atlanta one, I think, was not canceled by them, but by the hotel and by the city, because Atlanta's just a mess right now. And I know they were supposed to go during an early weekend in August. Right. But there might be, I guess, some of the silver lining maybe to some of that is, and this goes for festivals, conventions, and anything else that just has that moment where it gets oversaturated, that, maybe this will kind of weed out some of the stuff that's taking away from the magic of some other events that, sometimes less is more. I agree. I think that this is a
herding, thinning of the herd, but I just hope it's the right. For films, movie theaters, I think it's going to be the wrong ones. But I do think that some film festivals and conventions, I'm not a fan of some of them, because I think that some of them are not run excellently, and I think that there's a glut, to say the least. But
that's fair.
Yeah, but I hope that it works out the best way, and I do think that some of it's going to be virtual because I think it can be. I was talking with somebody yesterday about that in a mastermind. We were like saying, how do we keep the vendors going through this kind of thing, but still do stuff that is virtual? Because, my God, I can go to a thing in Michigan, but I'm not going to fly to Michigan. You know,
Right.
but how do can you use things like Cameo, you know, where people are paying a celebrity $50 to sing happy birthday to them? Can you somehow incorporate that kind of thing into the line that you would have? But then there's the whole thing of vendors, which is basically 10,000 square feet of impulse buy. You don't go online to find the things that are in a vendor's room. You go into a
Right.
vendor's room to be surprised by the audaciousness.
And a lot of those vendors, I mean, this is their livelihood. This is what
Yes.
they do year round. This is how they make their money. You know,
Yeah.
this is not just I had a weekend off and I made some cool shit, so I'm gonna sell it. It's like, no, that's their business. This is what they do. And, you know, and I know a lot of them and I see them, you know, a lot of them are trying to, you know, really push those Etsy sales and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, I mean, there's something to being there where it's like you've got that impulse and you've got that need to be like, oh my God, I've been looking for this.
Yeah.
Whatever this is. You have it. I'm going to buy it versus, you know, kind of just browsing and hoping you stumble upon it online, you know?
Yeah. That's the version of what I love about cons is when that's how you start conversations, right? You're sitting there flipping through the movie posters and it's like, make them die slowly, magnificent. And it's like saying that can only happen there. And then somebody will come over and start talking to you about it. And movies I've forgotten I've seen on Blu-ray.
Now, Simone, are you a convention person? Do you go to conventions?
No, I don't.
Have you been?
Not really. Unless festivals don't count as conventions. No, not really.
No, they are different.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I only do things if I can see a particular path towards success.
Yeah.
And so like while doing the cons is really fun, it hasn't sort of fit into my mom, if she's still listening, is going to be so proud. It does not fit in to like the strategy of furthering, like I do this for a living. I've been running Magic Dog for 5 years. Yeah. Ever since I graduated, when I graduated NYU, I was a New York State real estate agent for about a year. And after that, I've not done a job outside of the film industry since then. So like, this is all I do. We have to be very strategic. So spending money to go to a con does not further my like. So
right.
I go to festivals, but I have not allowed myself to go to and enjoy cons. So I feel like everyone's very sad about something that's like gone that I totally just missed entirely. And I'm hoping it comes back in the future so I can play.
Yeah, I mean, I went to my first one, I think like just a couple years ago, only because, you know, when we were getting ready to launch the fest, I was like, horror convention, those are the fans. We should go there and tell them about this fest.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, hey, do you guys like scary movies, right? Everyone here, thousands of people. I know a place.
Some of you are women or you like women, right. Appreciate women's work. Oh my God.
Yeah. Here's my card.
Yeah. You like women, you like horror. We got both. Come on.
Yeah. Join us.
Well, that's, as you know, Vanessa, going to cons sometimes does help because you can get on a panel and be seen.
Yes. I will say I think they're really great for the fans. Personally, I like you said, Simone, I haven't really found a way. They cost me money. Like I don't go to one because by the time you realize like you paid for your hotel, you bought a vendor table. Like I like to try to go to promote the fest, and I realize like, you know, the fans at conventions, they want celebrities.
Right.
You know, yeah, they can appreciate maybe a good indie film, but they're not going there unless they can meet somebody and get something signed. So for me and what I was doing, it really was not worth it to kind of take up vendor space to just spend money and be like, hey, you know, we're here because, you know, maybe 2 people from any convention that I went to have attended the fest. But, you know, if you're a fan and you like to find the weird stuff that you can't find, I mean, go. You like to collect stuff. Like, I tell people, like, go. But now it's, I mean, those places, you're going to come home with the crud. Whew.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Everyone gets sick afterwards.
Well, that's one of the
And I
things that
won't
was
touch
always.
people. I would never shake hands. I'm like, we're good.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll wait.
And did you
Yeah.
get sick?
No.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, con
No,
crud is a real deal
I've
thing.
Escaped the con crud because I don't like to get too. I mean, I got sick after whiff because, of course, I was hugging everybody.
Right.
You were also
And I got
like
strep throat.
Yeah, overworked, like probably stressed,
Yeah, I didn't sleep.
excited. Yeah, like that's a
I think
recipe.
the
for
only
a
food
cold.
I ate was the pizza that Scott bought.
Right. That's
The
right.
first meal of the day at midnight.
At midnight. Yeah. Wonderful. I'll have to remember that next time. So we have a question from Christy Wentz. Simone, if you could direct a reboot of a bad horror film, what would it be?
Ooh, good one.
Does
I
it have
haven't
to be a bad one?
I don't know. That's the question.
That's
Yeah.
the question as she asked it. Well, I have an obscure answer. Many, many years ago, I saw a film on Netflix called Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Are you familiar? Oh my
Yes.
God, that's so awesome.
I've
Are
heard
you
of
even
this.
Ah!
I've not seen it, of course, because I haven't seen
you don't
anything.
actually.
But I
You
have
don't
heard
need
about
to.
it.
You don't need to have seen it. It opens with a topless pilgrim woman running through the woods.
Right.
Well, that's how it was back in the day.
Just like no, she was dressed halfway down, but like just
Yeah.
ah,
Well, they were Puritans.
so pure. So
Puritans.
there, she's Puritans. So she's running through the woods, and there's like what is visibly a terrible turkey puppet. Like it's not. It doesn't even begin to pretend to not be a puppet. It is a puppet, and it's like it's like
Yeah.
following her, and so she's like ah, and she like looks at, she's like running and she's screaming, and so it cuts to the turkey and it's like gobble gobble motherfucker, and like it's just funny, and then like she's running, and then it catches up to her and it goes nice tits bitch, and then it like kills her.
Right.
So I want to remake Thanksgiving without the opening scene of like topless pilgrim woman. Like I want the really bad
but
puppet.
it sounds amazing.
I want the bad puppet, and I want to kill in other ways, and like just like I want to mess with it, but I want the same bad puppet, and I want the pilgrim woman, but she gets to wear a shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Fair enough.
But no pants, though, right? Because we're pantless.
No
No pants.
You know what? That's her prerogative. If she's
Yeah.
a fan of pants, then they lived in tough times. Those pilgrims, and
Right.
The bloomers.
you know, were their
Mm.
benches smooth? Were they sanded, or do you need pants? You know what I mean?
No, you're
Like,
getting a splinter in your
yeah,
butt.
you don't want split.
Were the benches smooth? Those are the questions. This is why
Listen, inquiring minds, man.
we're very professional.
That sounds amazing. A weird turkey puppet. Please do this.
I would need the rights from the makers of Thanksgiving.
You could probably find them in a dumpster.
I have a
behind,
feeling you
the
can
car
get
wash.
that puppet. I think
Just
we
shoot-
can help you.
Shoot them a little email. Be like,
Yeah.
do you still have the puppet? They're like, we play with it regularly. Do you want to borrow it?
So
Yeah.
Simone, if you love Thanksgiving, you must see Blood Freak. So Blood
Ooh,
Freak
let me write that
is
down.
from the 70s. And it was a movie that was made, it was supposed to be an anti-drug movie made by this Christian church, this group. And the guy who decided to make it, who got the money, decided he was an auteur. And it is the most insane fucking movie. It's basically a guy smokes genetically altered pot and he gets a turkey head. He goes around killing people. It's just fucking amazing. And that's not even the greatest things in it. I mean, and you have to watch it to the very, very end because there's this whole thing of Plywood Man. You have to find out about Plywood Man, which is like a narrator chain smoking cigarettes, trying to look as sexy as he can with his shirt kind of unbuttoned, talking about the evils of drugs and everything. And at the end of the movie, he smoked through the entire fucking thing, doing narration outside of the rest of the film. He starts coughing and they never cut. So he's like, and then he just goes back as if nothing happened. It is awesome. They have all the people who are in the movie are non-actors. They're all people, obviously, from the church. And they're like wearing white lab coats going, yes, we must make the best pot. It's just fucking magnificent. It's magnificent.
It is a worthy cause and endeavor.
It is.
We must make the best pot.
It is a tremendous film.
My character is a robot.
we will sell the weed to the people.
And it looks like Christopher G. Moore is saying they had a successful Kickstarter to make the second Thanksgiving film called Thanksgiving 3. The joke was the second film doesn't exist. So there you go.
It was successful, so are they going to make it? When I want Thanksgiving 3.
Yeah.
Or about they didn't make part 2, so you could have part 2. You could be like the hidden, Thanksgiving 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I see that you forfeited part 2 to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Carrie said Santa's Sleigh.
Oh, that would be a remake. So
a movie?
So Santa's Sleigh.
Sleigh.
I remember that one. Well, I'm trying to remember. Is that the one? There was one that has like this horrible family eating Christmas dinner, and Santa comes in and like murders them all, but it's hilariously done. Like I think Lance Henriksen is the father, and like they stab his hands with the like the forks into the table, and he's like trying to bite his wrists off to fight this guy. I mean, it's not.
Know what this is called.
It's so ridiculous. If anybody knows,
why would you bite your wrists? I think couldn't you just pull the forks out, and then you've got built-in weapons.
Yeah, it's absurdist. It's thoroughly absurdist. And it lasts. It's not very long, but it's super brutal, ridiculously over the top blood, and it's funny.
That is my kind of stuff right there.
Yeah, hit me with it.
I like a good horror comedy.
So Vanessa, we had the question about bad remake. You're a filmmaker. What would you do as a remake if you had a chance?
Oh crap! Yeah, I'm not good on the spot. I thought we've discussed this already. I can't. My brain goes blank.
Okay, we'll come back then.
Come back. I'll think about it. Yeah.
We'll come back. We'll forget completely about it.
I'll be like, what?
The thing that is in my head now, and I swear to God, this is true. I want to remake. Yeah, Fran Drescher. That's it. Carrie Yates. That's the one. Santa's Sleigh. So the one with the crazy death is Santa's Sleigh, because I remember Fran Drescher going, making getting murdered.
Fran.
It's fucking hilarious.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah. So anyway, the movie that I watched again and I want to remake, The Car from 1977.
The Car?
The Car, a killer car running around, running people over.
It needs,
with nobody as the driver. It is not.
That sounds very familiar. I may have seen that.
And that's the one with the horn goes bam, 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 bam. Basically, it came out in 1977. They were trying to make Jaws with a car. And so they came up with this idea of having
shark.
Yeah, literally. So it's like the devil is driving this car, and the car is this weird. They made their own vehicle for this film, and it looks really cool and creepy. And it's like this really heavy car that's like a mixture of two different types. And it's in the desert.
Yeah.
And it starts these two bicyclists going through one of the big national parks. And they get run off the road and ground up and everything by the car. And it has this weird beep. And James Brolin is the sheriff of this town. And it's going around killing everybody. Now, it's absurd because it takes place over several days. It's clunky, all this stuff. But I'm like, Chrissy Wentz just put, that's The Car. It is truly, it has truly suspenseful moments in it. It's actually pretty decently directed. There are moments that I go, I would keep that, but it's certainly terribly absurd. But I think it is culturally relevant right now because all you would have to do is like change it to real time. Make the movie about a real time event of somebody running into a parade or protest with their car, because that is happening right now.
Yeah. And
have the police going after, and this whole idea of how, because in the movie, The Car, is racism. There's this whole thing of there are a lot of Native Americans that are working in this police station. People are calling him up going, hey, chief, why don't you go back to your teepee and stuff? He goes, why don't you say that here? I'll kick you in your fucking ass. And there's a bad guy who's like, he beats his wife and all this stuff. And at one point, the car is going to run him over, and it doesn't. It stops and goes around and kills somebody innocent. So there's this whole idea in my head about how it might be really interesting to take this B movie and talk about how you have this muscle car, this American muscle car running around running people over, and it can't be stopped, and it's only going after certain people. Like it is this emissary for an anger that is coming to the surface. And I was like, for as shitty of a movie, I mean, I like the car because I saw it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But the idea of it being this thing where they're trying to chase it down and it keeps getting away, and like, how can it get away? Where it becomes supernatural, where they're like, holy cow, we've got it on camera, we've got it on YouTube, people are taking video from their cameras, make it real time, make it this whole thing where you don't have time to think about how absurd the idea is, and then there's no driver. And that would be the one.
I think that's super cool for two reasons, Scott. And the first reason is sort of what you're talking about with cognitive dissonance earlier, which is that like a car is one of like the more standard things that you expect to see in society, that you'd expect to have. It's your ticket to going to get your groceries, to going to see your family. Like it's like it's very common. It's your avenue towards anything normal and good. So the cognitive dissonance of having like this very normal thing that wants to kill you. It's like if your TV wants you to die. Like it's like you're used to this, but you're not used to that. And then the second reason why I think that's a really cool idea is because of the future of autonomous vehicles. It's pretty much here, and it will be fully here very soon. And there's a lot of concern, rightfully so, from people who know what they're talking about like what these vehicles are going to do. And my dad works in artificial intelligence, and I wish I knew whether they were listening or not, because I would tell you more if I knew that they weren't, and I don't know if they are or not. But,
like if your dad's listening, or like the robots?
Yeah. No, but like I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yes.
Gonna go out on a limb and assume that they're not here.
Yeah.
Don't be here. Don't
go
be
on the limb.
So the last thing that he sort of was working on that I knew about before he retired was he was working with the Navy on how to put ethics into autonomous vehicles. He's a computer programmer and artificial intelligence sort of expert. And so the Navy was like, you tell the cars, the computers what to do. They need to make split-second decisions based on loss of human life without asking someone what to do. And so my dad was like, cool, but we haven't decided on a code of ethics for human, like us.
Right.
So I can't put like, you want me to pick what the code of ethics is and put them in. So then like that, he becomes like, so this is, even amongst the experts, this is completely uncharted territory. And there's the potential for harm and death and confusion and terror with autonomous vehicles is really profound.
Yeah. It could
also,
be like the birds.
Your parents are listening.
Yeah.
Are they?
They just said.
Yeah. Wouldn't that
be? No.
Well, actually.
Hey, Mom and Dad. Sorry, Dad. Tell the Navy I'm sorry. Don't send them after me.
I mean, are we gonna are they gonna do the thing to make us? Why are they wiping our memories?
Well,
no. Honestly, if they can wipe my memory for the last 6 months, I want it.
Yeah.
Fair.
Wipe it.
Yeah. I was about to say, it could be like the birds, but they already made that. That's what Maximum Overdrive was. Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive was all the cars come to life and are chasing people and running them over. But it's, it's an idea that I was thinking of. And you bring up something really interesting, Simone, about artificial intelligence, which is, I think it was MIT 3 or 4 years ago, came up with a nightmare machine where they had AI creating nightmares and was going into the idea. Yeah, exactly. What is the purpose? Why was that an experiment that was being brought
are
up?
you familiar with why we have nightmares?
Well, I have my answers to why we have nightmares.
Ooh, I have some answers I believe came from scientists, but
okay.
I love scientists.
Let's hear the scientist answer of what nightmares are.
I'm not a scientist, so this is my artistic rendering of my beliefs of
you
what
play
science
one on
is.
TV.
Yes.
Interpretive dance.
So the purpose of nightmares is for us to explore the difficulties that are potentials for us in real life without the actual imminent harm. So we used to dream about things like running from a saber-toothed tiger, or having to flee from, or we're
I
out
still
of food.
do.
Oh, sure. Whatever, spooks you out at night. So a lot of people dream of things nowadays, like losing their wallet, or if they appear in front of a group completely naked or something like that. So since we no longer have to sort of run the trials of what would happen if we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, our brains they are able to explore and look at more complex potentials that we could really face. So it's sort of like a trial and error. Like, what would we do if somebody was chasing me on a dark street? Like, what would I do? This is a simulation of what I would do without having to actually encounter somebody on a dark street who's trying to chase me. So that is what scientists believe is the purpose of dreams, is to give us an opportunity to try things out and take risks without the actual imminent possibility of our death.
That's what I thought horror movies are for.
Fascinating.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like that's part of the reason why I love horror so much, and why people think in the past I've thought I've been so weird when I'm like, things are really complicated and difficult. What I want to do is watch a horror movie, because that shit is going to be much more complicated and difficult and scary than what I'm currently dealing with. Mm-hmm. So it not only does it put it into perspective, but it gives my brain an opportunity to be like, oh no, I would run from that. And like, all of a sudden my problems that I'm solving on my end are like, well, we're not being chased by a chainsaw wielding, you know. So it gives you the opportunity to flex those muscles without getting hurt.
That's an interesting thought with the sun, but I mean, I guess my nightmares are very different than losing a wallet or
Mine
even
too.
Chased by a tiger.
Losing teeth.
You're the second person who said that to me this week, that they dream about losing their teeth.
All the time.
That's supposed to be a sense of lack of control, lack of power.
I heard it was also a lack of
calcium,
like insecurity.
Also, sometimes I'll dream that I just have hair just around the perimeter, but it's really long and I'm bald everywhere else. Yeah, and my teeth grow.
Or those long beards.
Yeah.
This little.
But see, like, and they're unsettling. But so, what would the scientists say about that? What is that?
I mean, I'm not a scientist, but my guess is that they would say you're running sort of a trial on like, what if I'm like, I can't control. So obviously your hair is very important to you. It's beautiful and pink and styled very beautifully. So like, what if the hair was out of your control? Like, I remember you posted a picture of your hair being super curly and like down, and and you were like, look how weird it is. So it's like, maybe it's your brain's way of being like, hey, so your hair is a way that you control how you feel about yourself and how you present yourself. So if that becomes out of your control, then
you might have just hit the nail on the head. I think you're right. Wow, I didn't realize I had so much tied to my hair, but I think I do. Oh,
well, it's very cool.
I should talk to a professional, maybe.
Yeah, no, please. This is not legal advice. I'm not a psychiatrist, psychiatrist. I cannot prescribe any pills.
No, but that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounds right. I mean, it's not like it's that. I mean, it's not like you sat there and said, I don't know, I'm having nightmares about donuts rolling after me and pickles flying through the donuts. I don't know what it means. You know, it's like the idea of just
what are you dreaming about?
Yeah. I have a recurring nightmare.
Scott,
what's your recurring nightmare?
I just like pickles. My nightmares are usually the teeth falling out is a big one. Like coughing, going, oh my God, and it's happening. And but my biggest one is pickles. No, the biggest one that I have is that I am at an apartment or something. I'm living somewhere, and I have music playing. It's nighttime. The lights are on. It's very comfortable. And it's almost like kind of a 70s kind of thing. It feels timeless in that way, like that movie, God, the one where the thing keeps walking at people. How come I can't?
It Follows?
It Follows, thank you. That whole thing of like, you can't tell what year it is. It feels a little like it's retro, yet they're playing like weird video games. And so I have that kind of feel in the dream. And as I'm walking across the room, the record skips and the lights dim. And I'm like, suddenly I feel very scared. And something invisible grabs me and throws me to the ground, and I hear it like laughing, and what's in my head, and I can feel the breath of something that I can't see on me, and my thought is, they were right. And I'm basically talking about my family, the crazy religion that I was in, all of that. So it's like this whole thing of everything that I believed. I fooled myself my whole life. I thought that I was being intellectually whatever, that I was the rational one. And the reality is that it was just waiting for a moment of weakness. And in reality, all these people that I've been like, God, why are they doing this to other people? They were correct. And that I was the one that was wrong. And that's one that I wake up going, fuck.
Yeah, I read your book, Scott. So I'm aware of your family life, and you mentioned it earlier that your family, you come from fundamentalist Christian. So it's I mean, like, you're clearly a grown ass man who's like done things with his life, and like so you're clearly still being affected by what I would call the dogma of your childhood.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And I say that a lot, that there's that stuff is so deep. It's in the DNA. It's kind of like THC in the fat cells that they talk about. And like pop, it just comes back out.
But it just, if you give it a few weeks, the THC will go away.
Right. But this stays
the
forever.
Fundamentalist Christian is just really
it never goes away. It's like I can be as logical. I can go through the entire thing. I've worked through all of this, and yet there is that moment where it just does come back, that it's deep down in that lizard brain area, and I can't get away from it. And
brainwashing is a hell of a thing.
Oh yeah, and it's still, and what's creepy about it is that my family's still in it. The thing didn't die. They were wrong in 1975. They were mocked, and it didn't matter because it's easier to just go along with it than to say you were wrong.
Right.
It's amazing what people will deceive themselves in to just continue to be right.
We're seeing reverberations of that throughout our country right now. In other regards, in other respects, to certain pandemics which shall not be named, and otherwise.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head on that one, that we're in that moment now where we've got, it's madness. It's like a child's temper tantrum that we're seeing, but it's on an international level. So it's not just an American problem. This is something that is a psyche that's happening to society, culture as it stands.
Do you think it's not the worst here? I mean, I'm sure there are other places, but like the American culture of like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do is not really that prevalent in a lot of places in Europe and in Asia, and they're like, no, we'll do what's right for the group.
Yeah, in some aspects, but then again, you look at they tried stuff in Sweden that didn't work. England, Britain has not done well. There are many places that Brazil didn't do well. So and a lot of this. I don't want to get into anything too controversial, but there are a lot of places where faith is put at a higher level, and you're not allowed to say anything about faith, that can supersede things. And unfortunately, and this has happened before. I mean, all the way back to the Children's Crusade, where faith comes into play and disaster comes along with it. There have been outbreaks where hundreds and thousands of people have died because of a belief system, as opposed to following what came out as fact later, but there was at least room for dissent on that. I think sometimes I think right now America is the world's Florida. I think that's
sort of what I meant.
Yeah. I think everybody's looking at us like going, man, to be where you were to what you are now is a cognitive dissonance in and of itself. But I don't know if we have it worse or that it is worse than it is in some other places. I mean, I would say that the idea that China kept things pretty quiet and they had robots going around spraying antiseptic all over the place and not telling people, that's pretty bad. So I would say that's, I wouldn't say that we're that, but Americans are too proud to own up to their mistakes, says Brian Christian. I can agree with that. I think that that's true. I think we're in this weird thing though, where I wish I could say it was just an American problem, but I don't think it is. I think this is an international world culture issue where we are at a moment where we don't want to believe what is in front of us. We don't want equality for people. We don't want what we used to hate to be okay. And so what I'm saying about that is that Berlin, places like that where it was thoroughly illegal and enraging for there to be anything Nazi. I mean, you could not talk that stuff in Germany for a long period of time. It's back. You know, in England, it is back. It is in the Germanic areas and in the areas of Scandinavia where it is predominantly white. It is back. You know, it is not just here. So what is it?
Yeah.
Why are we having this? You know, and I don't know. In some ways, I think of it almost like science fiction. I think last week I talked about the Screwfly Solution, which was this movie where there was a disease that attacked the brains of humans, and it attacked the fight or flight area where sex and violence are the same, and men started murdering women, and they weren't doing it out of rage; they're doing it because they were titillated. And so it was killing off the species by having us no longer allowing both sexes to exist. And that was science fiction, but it's almost like we're in something here where, you know, you're too progressive now. Now we have to go back, and it's not just in one place. It's not just, because Americans think so highly of themselves. It's everywhere, or it's in many places. And I don't know what that is. And I don't know why we're where we are. And I do like to think in my own fantasy world that this is the dying lion syndrome, that this is when the lion is at its most dangerous. It's dying, but it's going to die. And I think that this is a last gasp because it's so pronounced. It's so excessive. It feels like a temper tantrum. It feels like a death knell, but a dangerous one, a very dangerous one. So I don't know, but it feels insane that so many people that I know that I think are intelligent people, you know, have gone down a path that I think is sad. It's sad more than anything else. And I don't understand, because not everybody has the same values, rights, considerations across the globe. And yet it's there in certain areas. And in some places it's never been this good. You know, there are places where women have never gotten to where women have gotten here, or homosexuals have never gotten where homosexuals have gotten. So I'm not necessarily sure. It's pretty horrifying stuff. I read an article from The Atlantic about how your immune system could cause people to get a mental illness. That's interesting, Brian, because there's a book that I always like to try and sling out on people, which is Get Well Soon. It's a book that I read long before the pandemic, but one of the many pandemic books that I read. And it's by, let me see if I can look it up very quickly in my library of audiobooks. But up there it is. Jennifer Wright is the writer. And she's a scientist. And she Get Well Soon. And the subtitle is The Heroes Who Saved Us from Major Epidemics and stuff. And it goes into some of the stories of things like the plague, the Black Plague, and how Justinian, Emperor Justinian, one of the Roman emperors.
I don't know the emperors.
Just set fire to the slums. He said, I have the answer. We're going to get over this Black Plague. We're going to kill everybody that's in the slums. And he did it. And he saved Rome, but he also killed all these people. And one of the things that they talk about was this: in Salisbury, Germany, there was a dancing disease. Young girls were dancing themselves to death. I kid you not. This is real. And it became...
What?
Wait,
Yeah.
You're about to talk about my next feature that's under wraps at this time.
Wow.
I wish you wouldn't.
Okay, I will.
Because just earlier today, I was talking to somebody and I was like, are you aware of this thing that these people did that caused them to all die? Because they were like manically, obsessively doing this thing, dancing. And he was like, what? I have to look this up. And then he was like, oh my God, I want to make this movie. And I was like,
Okay.
Yep.
Not the plague you were expecting
Right.
is the tagline.
That's great, because that's the book has a bunch of that
so
kind
amazing.
of stuff.
I can't believe you're, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a weird, the things I read, it's amazing. But yeah, that's such an amazing idea that you're going to write that, or actually you're making that film, or you've made that film, because that's something that I was like, it's hard to believe that it's true. it's hard to believe that this actually.
And it's 100% true. It happens.
Yeah.
So like we can die of the strangest things that are associated with mania. Like we can, or like a shared psychosis, or like or a shared hypnotic sort of situation.
Yeah.
Like
well,
this has happened repeatedly throughout history. This is real.
Well, there's belief that that's what the witch trials were, that it was bad rye bread.
Yep.
You know, I forget what the mold was.
Yeah, everybody was a little contaminated, so they decided to burn women at the stake.
Christopher G. Moore said pandemic boogaloo. Yes, true. That is the correct answer. He wins.
That book also talks about how there was TB, how TB was like the first goth movement, where women wanted to look wan and pale because TB at one point you would have this weird beauty. And so women were bleeding themselves.
It's like a Morticia Adams beauty.
Yeah. And people were going crazy for it. And they were talking about how people were another thing that was big was gonorrhea, weirdly enough. That it was I think it was
my second answer.
I think it was I'm pretty sure it was gonorrhea out of the disease, sexual disease. But it ate away your nose.
Oh, your nose.
It ate away
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, it ate away the cartilage in your nose. So it was a common beauty thing to have your nose, the tip of your nose, sewn to your lip, so that you would have this bone.
Yeah, what would that look like?
I have no, but this was like the height of the idea that we, and I think
there was a Twilight episode like that.
I think it's really interesting that we find these things that happen where we our bodies are changing because of something strange that's happening, some weird body thing, and it becomes like a weird fashion to
Yeah, and then as humans, we're like, that's hot.
Yeah.
Let's repeat that.
I'm waiting for the Rubenesque thing to come back. Like everybody's gained the COVID-19, right? So
I'm waiting for that to be good as well because I think it's obvious.
So if you talk about my Vanessa like that.
Someone was made a meme about it. Someone made a meme about it and made me laugh. And then I was like, that's probably going to happen, which was, now I understand why all the romantic or the painters from the romantic era were with a bunch of heavy women sitting around naked eating grapes with
their tits out. Yeah.
That's all we can do.
Well, you're not gonna put them away if there's no one around.
It's like, hot, right?
Let the gals breathe. Yeah, it's
summer.
Summer.
My God, the heat. Talk about no pants.
I will
you like how we come from
what you wear.
This is a full circle.
So I think at this point it's time for me to allow people to come in.
Yeah, let them come on in.
Get in here.
Post the Zoom meeting stuff.
We're talking about gonorrhea and
and titties.
Titties. TIDDY. Yeah.
That's the proper spelling.
Yeah. Now I found that out. Old guys, we find these things.
Carrie Yates sent a little thank you along. She said, Scott, my husband thanks you. His to watch list is getting longer.
I think hang out with Scott. Yeah.
Same. I have a very long list. I got very excited because I just ordered a ridiculous amount of books. Because after our author show, I was like, well, I got to read that. So I have like a huge stack, and we'll have to talk about it another day, but I'm like about 3/4 of the way through of The Girl Next Door.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we have to talk about that one afterwards.
Oh, boy.
A rough one. And they made a movie out of it, but it was kind of like a made-to-TV movie, if I remember. Well, I don't know if it was made for TV, but it felt like one. So it was, it's not very good. But the book is, wow.
Well, I remember you said it made you really angry, and I am feeling furious reading this.
Why?
And I don't want to like spoil it. I mean, I'm probably the last person who's read this, but
it's based on a true story of a woman who has a family that takes in a child who was abandoned, and
her parents died.
Her parents died.
Yeah,
and
in a car crash.
Yeah, and she is tortured, sexually used as a slave by the entire family.
Jesus Christ.
And the neighborhood. Like, it's humiliated beyond, like, it's
and this and it's of a time period, and it actually happened. That's the thing. It's of a time period where you did not get involved with people's family business, right? Police didn't show up, all this stuff.
Like if you had a kid that was a little mentally disabled, you could just chain them in the attic and nobody would care.
Right. And
quite literally.
That is how this is kind of framed.
Yeah. And Jack Ketchum goes all the way with this. And why it works so well, why it's so effective of a book, and why it enraged me so much is that by reading it, you are implicit. You are part of you can't hide.
Yeah.
You're reading this and you want to find out what's happening. And at the same point, he is letting you know how horrible what you're reading is by what you're feeling by going through it. And you're wishing that it's not going to happen. You're like, please don't let this happen. And you know it's going to. And it just gets worse.
So you feel complicit
yes.
in what's happening to her, and like you're like betraying her by bearing witness to...
Yes, and I think, because the narrator is complicit. Like it's
and that's the thing, is that it has a narrator and you are taking the narrative voice. Some books have the unreliable narrator, but this is the narrator that is a co-conspirator. Mm-hmm. And he does it for the reasons that would horrify you. It's not that he's horny. It's not any of that. He's afraid to stand up. And so you are just...
And a little curious himself. Like there's even a moment where it's like, he wants to know how far it's going to go.
And he knows that if he stands up, he might be the one who gets chained, right? Yeah. So there's that whole thing of where we would feel weak and where we would feel that there's a chance that we might find ourselves in that spot. Until you're at that moment, you don't know. There's always that moment of fear. Will I stand up? And so the book is all about that. The book really is a call to arms. Mm-hmm. When you finish the book, you're like, yes, you got to stand up for people because I just endured this.
It reminds me of when I was in like high school when I read Lolita, and I was thinking things like, oh my God, that girl's a slut. And I was like, oh my God, am I thinking that about a child? Like what? Like I'm complicit in sexualizing a child. Like, so it made me feel dirty. Like I had to go take 100 showers just because like the narrator affected how I was seeing the situation, and I was sympathetic to him because he was one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's how I felt. I mean, there were moments like I was just, because I read at night before bed. This is not a great one to go sleep to, but there were moments where I felt, like generally I read and I'm not making facial expressions, but like I felt myself, I went, oh.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah. So we just heard from a scientist. Lisa just wrote me on my phone. Syphilis. Yes. It's syphilis that eats your nose, not gonorrhea.
Oh, thank you, Lisa.
God, why is she joining us? She has all the answers too.
I went and contracted the wrong venereal disease.
That's right.
I heard that it was gonorrhea.
Yeah. Now all you got is morning drip. What good is that?
Oh my God, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean gonorrhea is so like last year.
Koalas are riddled with gonorrhea.
Yeah, that's so funny because
wait. Let's discuss that.
Koalas have the highest rate of gonorrhea of any animal on the planet.
Even over bonobo monkeys or whatever it is?
Yeah, over our bonobos as well.
Oh, wow. Got to stay away from them.
Yeah, they're just like absolutely riddled with gonorrhea. Yeah.
What is happening to them? Why?
They like to smash.
God. Oh.
They're really gross. And this is horror content because they are disgusting animals. If you've never watched a documentary on koalas, do it and be horrified.
They're gross. They look so
Oh my
cute.
God. I could describe to you the single most disgusting like thing that I found in nature is I learned it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gross me out.
I don't think I can say this out loud. My parents.
Yes, you can do it.
Okay. So when a lady koala gets pregnant, oh my God, she uses feces to plug up, if you will, her vagina.
She stuffs poop in her hoo-ha?
Yeah, just to
keep the baby from falling out?
Might be because of all the gonorrhea, but Again, horror content. I'm not making this up. Like,
I would think that would lead to some terrible infections.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Huh. Well, I have a whole new.
I think Scott is speechless. Look at him.
I don't even know where to go.
I got him.
There's nowhere to go with this.
Vanessa, has this ever happened before?
I don't think so.
No, this is the first time.
What prize do I win?
Yeah, I was like, you get to watch Cannibal Holocaust. Where
Okay.
It's another one I've not seen, but are they putting poop in their hoo-has?
No, but they do a
You like how I
terrible
call
thing
it
to
a
a
hoo-ha?
hoo-ha. They do a terrible thing to a hoo-ha, which is
I
because
can't handle genital mutilation.
There-
Not
there's
a big
so
fan
much-
myself.
yeah, there's so much nasty in that movie. It's amazing. What blows me away is that it's on you can get it on Shudder for free if you're doing the Shudder thing. They have
Shudder?
that and Cannibal Ferox, both of those movies, which are really vicious, nasty
I'll have to take a
cannibal
look.
horror
I'm
films.
gonna watch it on the Shudder.
They're both let me give you the caveat that everybody will give, which is what I love about horror fans. We can watch hoo-has get mutilated, but an animal gets killed on screen.
No, you can't do
both
that.
of those movies have that.
It'll ruin my week.
Yeah. Looks like Christy Wentz is trying to come in. She's been
Let her in.
So let's let her in.
Get in here.
All right.
Yeah, I can't watch animals or children, but like adults, I'm like, you probably did something.
I haven't made any babies, so I'm like, kill the children. It's fine.
Watch animals. I'm hearing my own voice back.
Hey,
at
so
me.
Christy, we're gonna have you have headphones or something like that because we're hearing ourselves over your volume. I'm gonna mute you until you get them.
Yep, hold on.
She's on it.
There we go. Yeah, she's on it. She got it. So that's an interesting thing, talking about movies that break some taboos like that, like the idea of killing kids has been a taboo for quite a bit of time, but has also been nailed early. I mean, Jaws has kids getting killed. The shark eats the kid. But I think the biggest body count of kids being killed is this. I want to say it's Dutch. It's called Cub. It's about Cub Scouts. Oh my God. Watch that movie. I cannot believe how many kids they kill in that fucking movie.
That's not for you, Vanessa.
Christy, you can.
No, that's not for me.
No, it's
Scott
hard.
knows my limits. I can't handle that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like I either read or I saw something, and you were like, "I can't believe you got through that." I'm like, oh, well, I tried.
Well, you watched the Puke movie.
Oh God.
Movie.
Oh, it's so much.
Yeah, which I'd
Yeah.
prefer not to talk about at all. But yeah,
Cool.
that was one of those movies
That was it.
regurgitated sacrifice. Is that what it's called? It's just a movie about puking.
Yeah, based on the title, I'm out.
Yeah,
Definitely.
fetishizes puking.
Nope,
So,
gross.
Christy, you're gonna have to. I'm pressing ask to unmute, so you can.
Yeah.
Are you unmuted? There you go.
We hear you.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome.
So you're in.
Welcome.
Bring your question. Bring it hard.
Oh, kitty.
Oh, who's with you?
I see a kitty cat.
Oh, that's
Not a koala.
yeah, that's
Thank God.
Munchkin. He thinks that he has to be the center of attention.
Oh,
He's right.
He is cute.
As all
Oh.
kids do.
I'm just impressed. No,
Well, thanks.
Just impressed, but we don't know what. But thanks.
What is
So-
impressing you?
no, just all that you've accomplished, everybody, all of you, and especially you, Simone, with your directing.
Thanks, Christy.
And more directing to come.
Yes, on projects we don't discuss yet.
Yeah. She's under wraps on certain things that we just cannot discuss.
Yeah.
It has
May
to
or
do
may
with,
not have
There's
to do
like
with
a lag.
dancing.
Are you getting a lag?
Yeah, just a little.
oh, sorry.
It happens. I don't know whose end that's on.
I'm hearing it. I'm hearing.
Technology gets
Yeah.
a little wonky and weird sometimes. Brian mentioned, he said, I think Star Wars has the most kills since it starts out with a planet getting blown up.
Well, there is that.
Fair. We don't see them. We don't know. We just guess.
So I have an interesting contribution. I have a short film that's loosely inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's A Telltale Heart, but told from a female perspective.
Oh.
Because Poe's original thing is like a man kills a man and 2 male cops come and they're like, what are you doing? So in this, a little girl dies and the mother is sort of responsible for dealing with it. And I think this has actually been submitted to Women in Horror Film Festivals. But the thing that I'm driving at is there's a little girl dies in it. So we had to make the decision, do we see a little girl floating in a pool or do we not see that? And and as we've repeatedly now talked about, I'm a proponent of not seeing the thing, because if you see it, like for me, I don't have a child. So the one who's floating in the pool is my dog Merlin. He's laying in his bed, like, so that's the terror for me. So if we see it, like I don't want you to see it so that you can replace your cat or your own kid or like your niece.
Right.
Or so, but what's been very interesting is it's gone to several festivals and I've gotten feedback from a number of people, and men exclusively have repeatedly said to me, why didn't you just show the floating dead child? Like, you could have just done that. Why didn't you do that? Like, my problem with your film is that I didn't get to see the dead girl floating in the pool, like the dead child. And I was like, oh, that's sort of the whole point. It's like you don't see it. So I just thought it was really interesting that, like, I got that feedback repeatedly, but only from like a certain age group of white men are like, I want to see the dead kid. And everyone else is like, I'm so glad you did not show me the dead child. Thank you so much. So I just found that really interesting.
Well, and I almost think that sometimes not showing it can be more disturbing.
Exactly.
But I wonder if that, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why that is the thing that's like, they needed to see it.
It would have been the moment of like intense horror and violence. So without it, it's sort of Hitchcockian. It's a little behind the scenes. Like, we don't get to actually see the dead with a corpse.
Yeah.
So people have to wonder, did she die? Why is that woman screaming at a pool? Is it because there's a corpse in that pool? Or is she just screaming at a pool? Like, it's really easy to understand. It's just that people wanted to see it. Yeah. And it makes me, like, there's a movie called Europa, and at the end of that, do you know Europa? At the end, they show the monster, and I'm like, the whole movie, I'm like, oh. And in the end, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
That's the thing, especially if you have an entire story that's kind of, it's this buildup of what is the monster, what is this thing, that nothing you ever show is going to be able to live up to what we have conjured up in our minds. And I think Hitchcock even had, you know, what's that famous quote? He said, there's no terror in the bang, only the anticipation of it.
Exactly. And
I think that is kind of a perfect way to see it. The moment you see the monster, it's like, well, I'm not so scared anymore, because
yeah, it all depends for me, something like that. It depends on execution, right? So if it feels like there's a shot missing, then that's an issue. If on the other hand, it's something where it is like what was the movie? It was The Invitation. Have you guys seen The Invitation? Karen Kusama's film. You never see the dead kid, right? You see them running towards him. You see his arm. You see a bloody bat. You see all this stuff, but you never see that. I never feel I need to see the kid, because all of the angles and the acting and the energy fills that. So I don't have to see it. If on the other hand, I'm watching something and it feels like all you needed was an insert, then this would have the same rhythm and pattern. You know, that's the only time that I would have an argument about that kind of thing. But
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And
I think there's more fear. Oh,
sorry. Go ahead. No, you.
I was going to say that I think there's more fear in the unknown than there is in the known. So when you don't see it, there's more fear to it. You're more scared because you're not sure what you're going to see, and your imagination can play out thousands of scenarios of what's possibly laying there with just those few items and not seeing the rest of the child.
Absolutely. I think that's a big reason why a lot of people are like, I'm not investigating a strange noise. I don't know what the noise is.
one
I
of
need
them.
answers.
I don't do that. I won't. I'm like, no.
I do.
You
I'm
go.
like, what was
You
that?
go.
Is that death? Is that imminent
Yeah.
death?
I mean, if we're together, I'll be like, Simone, you go. Look, I heard something.
Yeah, she'd have a latte with death.
Yeah.
See now my first kiss with horror, what I was galvanized by, was a dead kid, right? Because it's Don't Look Now. But Don't Look Now, if you really look at it, there's one shot of the girl going under, right? And she kind of fades away as the light dissipates away from her. She goes deeper into the water, but you never see her body just floating there. You know? You see the ball. You have every possible version of doing that in a symbolic way. It's very artful in its horror. But then you have the scene that scares the hell out of you, which is Donald Sutherland in slow motion coming out of the water, spray of water going everywhere. His hair's matted on his face. All you see is his mouth and the little girl like this. And that is absolutely terrifying. Yet you don't see bloated body. You don't. It's still these moments, these just little short things. I can think of several movies where that works so well. 10 Rillington Place, which is a rare film that a lot of people haven't seen. Richard Attenborough playing a serial killer. Real story about this guy after World War II who was killing women by pretending to be a doctor doing abortions, illegal abortions.
What's it called?
10 Rillington Place.
Thank you.
I think it's on Amazon now. I have an old DVD of it, and now as a collector, all my collection is worthless at this point because you can find it on Amazon at least for the next week until they decide no, you can't see that anymore.
Well, and I think it's interesting. Christopher G. Moore brought up a comment. He uses Seven as an example, and I always use the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he said, Seven has parts where they don't show stuff but imply and talk about what happened. There were people that think it's horrible based on how they recreated stuff in their minds that they didn't even show in the film. Texas Chainsaw Massacre did the same thing when they're talking about like, oh my God, it was just horribly bloody and gory. It's like there's never a moment where that saw touches anyone, but because of the way it's done, it's like our minds connect those dots. And that's a brilliant thing, I think, that happens in horror and shows the power of what our minds can do, which again, I think that's why, again, well executed, it works when you don't show as much because our minds are gonna do it.
Seven is an exceptional film because there's a couple things I want to talk about on that, which is the idea of what makes horror work so well sometimes is the inference of horror. So a great example everybody uses is Jaws, USS Indianapolis. Robert Shaw sitting there telling the story of guys going into the water in World War II. And he says this thing for 5 minutes and we are horrified. And that happens in The Fog. It happens in The Birds. And it happens as Seven is the USS Indianapolis story told 7 times for each of the 7 deadly sins. You don't see anything. It is the story of what has happened. We hear that he kicks this guy's stomach in, that he's been eating. We see a picture of the phallus with the razor on it. We don't see anything. Right. And there was a movie, it was like 1996, I think was the year of Seven. Seven is a story, a horror movie made up of those stories. There was also a movie, Wayne Wang's Smoke, the same year, which is an entire movie about stories, people telling stories around this one block in New York City. And they're both like, one is a horror movie and one is just a drama. But both of them they came out about the same time. And I was like, where are we going with filmmaking? This is fucking phenomenal. I can't believe it. Stories about stories, talking dialogue, moving an entire movie around through dialogue. And if you haven't seen, now I know this is a horror show, but if you haven't seen Wayne Wang's Smoke, watch it. Because
of course I haven't. I got to write it down.
There is a sequence at the end of that where Harvey Keitel tells a story for 5 minutes and the camera just slowly zooms in till it's just his face and almost just his mouth. And it tells the entire story and you cannot stop. You're captivated for 5 minutes as he tells his story. And then in the credits, they show the story as a film normally would be, like a short film. And it has none of the power. all of the power comes from how Harvey Keitel tells the story. And it's just a wonderful masterclass in filmmaking and acting. And I was like, holy cow, I can't believe that he had the guts to not only have Keitel do this and own the screen for that amount of time, but he also decided, let's do the experiment. Let's shoot this. I'm wondering, did he shoot it? And then he goes, you know what? It has no power. It's better when we did the B-roll of just Harvey talking. The B-roll is better than what we shot. Yeah. It's I've always wanted to talk to him and see what the answer to that. Yeah. And I wonder how often that was with Fincher. You know, Fincher's 7. There's if they shot stuff and he said, you know what? Why the fuck am I showing this? It's more disturbing having Morgan Freeman sitting there going, what happened? And having, you know, this viciousness of the conversation where he would always take things, you know, interesting stuff. Anyway, enough. You guys talk.
Sandwich.
Sandwich.
Well, I'm gonna scroll up and see if we have any other little chiming in.
I have something to say then. I think one of the things that we do at Magic Dog, or what we strive to do, is to avoid gratuitous or sexually gratuitous violence for gratuitous violence's sake. We don't believe that you need to have like a gutting or blood or whatever to really show these things. And so with that short film with the child's corpse in the pool, it felt to me like when people were asking after it, they weren't asking for a completion of the story or for an explanation or for more understanding. They were like, where's the gratuitous violence that I wanted in this piece? Yeah, they were like, I wanted to see someone die. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm not doing that here today. So it was like,
not the film for you.
So I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree, Scott, that like you can tell when something's missing. And there's a difference between, well, you should have just, like, I have thoughts, for example, on Game of Thrones and about how Drogo and like that and Daenerys like get together, like in the show, he just rapes her, and in the book, he doesn't rape her. And I'm like, you could have taken 5 more seconds. So it's like there was just something missing. It's not that they didn't just get it wrong. There was something missing. But what was really interesting is that when people were not really complaining, but wondering about it, it felt to me like they were like, I wanted something repulsive to look at, and you didn't give it to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sorry, watch something else.
Well, and I think sometimes they might be missing something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, well, and I say that in that
your brain cells.
Just that, you know, I mean, obviously we're all going to consume and interpret art differently. It's subjective, but you know, I think if you're watching something, you know, and you need that gratuitous visual to get you there, you know, you know, you kind of have to wonder, like, well, are you missing what's actually happening, or are you missing those dots that you need to connect? That it's maybe not so much on the filmmaker or the storyteller, but the viewer.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. I think it's also expectations sometimes. I've mentioned this before, but there was the movie XX. That was all the women filmmakers, and I love
female horror anthology that beat Netflix.
Yeah. And the one that I love in that is Jovanka Vukovic's The Box, which is a very well-known story that it gets taught in college courses. It's once again Jack Ketchum, and the idea of how just changing the sex of the main character, like flipping the sex, but not changing the dialogue or the situation, how it changed expectations and even my feelings about it. Me being conflicted at the end, realizing, holy shit, I read it completely different. I felt bad for the male character in the book, but when it was a woman, I'm like going, why is she such a shit to her kids? How could she be so cold? You know, it's so funny. And it's just, it's amazing how I filled in the blanks of, oh, well, women are always going to be wonderful to the kids. They're going to, you know, this whole, she can't be this way. Why is that guy such an idiot? He's so ineffectual. He's taking the role that the woman usually has that I may dismiss. so easily. But when I see a guy going, yes, dear, it's like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? So it was a really interesting experiment, you know, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant that I was given a interesting schooling on how just having the change of the sex roles of people in the same exact story can change and enrich the story. I thought it was fantastically well done. And it made me look back at why I was able to give this guy so much credence, you know, and it's really a dark, dark story. And I think sometimes, for better or for worse, I think it's not uncommon that you would say that white males were the ones that were going, what happened to the thing? Because they're probably sitting there going, why'd you pull the punch? Why'd you pull the punch? It has nothing to do about gore, wanting gore. It's like, why didn't you have the guts to go there, right? A guy may not do it. A guy may not do it, but he wouldn't get called on it. But and that's one of the things that I've talked about with the different generations of women filmmakers. Catherine Bigelow gave it as good as she got it, right? She needed to be the director that she was. She needed to come in and be as violent and as action-filled and as wild as the guys, because she needed to have that thing where they couldn't go, oh, well, she just doesn't have the guts to be an action director. No, she had to go there. Now, on the other hand, we've already done that. That's happened. Now we have the ability for women to tell stories where it's just a perspective switch, a focus switch, which is even more interesting and is confusing people more. Like I've heard that about the Karen Kusama film, The Invitation. You know, I've heard that about the Babadook. You know, why so much time with the crying, screaming kid? I get it already. Jeez, that's the whole story. That's the reason.
Yeah. Clearly, you've never been a mother.
Right. There it is. Exactly. And now we're actually, there you go. We're actually getting these stories that are being told not from that lens that we know all the time, but we're seeing the experience from a different thing. And some people are losing it. They don't know what to do with that. And so like The Invitation, they're like, man, I don't know. Everybody's so sad. That's the fucking movie is all about grief. The Thing is about grief, and that's what makes it great. And she plays all the Polanski beats. I see Polanski all over that film, and they'll rave for Polanski's films. They'll sit there and go, well, I don't know, nothing happens except people get sad. It's like, oh, go fuck yourself, man.
Yeah.
Here.
Hey, Simone.
Yes.
So being a woman in this day and age when still, you know, even Hollywood itself still has very few women directors, what do you think your biggest challenge is?
I mean, you sort of nailed it with the question. Is the biggest challenge is we all know that Hollywood does not want to give women money, even though we've proven time and time again that we can have major box office hits and make major amounts of money. They're very willing and excited to throw money towards. Let me take a step back. When I go to festivals, there's always some dude who's like, some dude who made a feature film who's like, gets up on stage and he has a plant in the audience who's like, how'd you get the $300,000 to make your movie? And he's like, well, I just had friends, and like they were like, why don't you just give it? So it's like, this happens over and over again. I've never heard a woman be like, I just got this budget, I got to make this movie. It's always men. So people just want to give men money. They don't want to give women money. They don't believe that we will have a good return on the investment. So what's my biggest challenge? I guess I am lacking in a penis. Like, I'm not sure like what else is really like, what's to do here. Like, I'm not sure if they're like looking up their skirts or what, but like, I think it really is just like a gender situation.
Well, you are not wearing pants, so.
So you're still not seeing any kind of change over the past decade at all? Is there any movement that's more than a centimeter that says that, you know, this is going to start going the opposite direction for the better?
That's a great question. To be fair, while I have technically been doing this for a decade, a decade ago, I was a fresh NYU college grad, and I was an actor. I had no experience in film. So it's probably only been in the last couple of years that I would really have the ability to actually answer that as far as like what people are actually doing. And like, I'm in conversations with some major entities that are really exciting. And that's only come to fruition in the last year, 6 months. So I had to work 9 years in order to get to this place where, and I just saw Netflix. I love you, Netflix. I'm not saying anything bad about you. I just saw that Netflix is giving a male filmmaker massive budget for his first feature film, and he just graduated college in May. So like, fine. But also, so yeah, the real answer is I haven't been doing this long enough to give you a good idea on what's changed and what's changing and how. I'm just gonna just take them by storm, and they have no choice but to allow me to do the thing.
Yeah. So I guess
so what can we do? Oh, sorry. I just want to know, what can we do? Well, besides that, we watch your movies, we you know, we post, we talk to our friends and so forth, but what else? I mean,
unless you literally know execs in Hollywood, I think the only thing that you can do is, I mean, what you're doing is the stuff. I mean, if you watch our films and you talk to people about them and you write a review on IMDb or on Amazon or wherever, if you write a Facebook post and you're like, I enjoyed this film, if you like, you know, certain types of things in your films, you probably enjoy this film. That's pretty much, I mean, to my knowledge, the extent of what you can do to support like just female filmmakers. Yeah. I wish I had a better answer.
Yeah. So I guess that makes me want to ask the hard question, right? Which is, Sherry Lansing has been an executive at 20th Century Fox and other places for 30 some years. You know, there are women that have been executives working for studios for a long period of time. There are producers who have been working for a long period of time. Why aren't women helping women, taking the risk, taking the chance?
Well, I have an answer to this that I don't think people will like.
Okay,
I'll give it to you anyways. I went to the Gina Davis Institute Women in Film event in LA in 2016. And I was very excited because I was crowdfunding for books. So I was like, when I go there, I'm going to meet people who give a shit about what I'm doing, and they're going to like throw me $10 or whatever. I was wrong. Nobody cared. But the takeaway is that there was people on stage, like there was 2 examples, and I'll name one of them, Gina Davis, because it's her thing and it wasn't really her fault. She was whisked away by her sort of security team. She wasn't allowed to talk to anybody, even though she said on stage that she'd be willing to talk to us and hear about our stuff. So she said that. But there was another woman who was a major producer and director, and she was up on stage and she gave 2 pieces of advice. First piece of advice is, if you're a woman and you're having trouble getting a good start in this industry, you should start a YouTube channel based on makeup or, yeah, so like I'm out already. Like I don't,
right.
Yeah, like I'm like, this is your advice. So her second piece of advice, which I was very excited for because the first piece of advice was just like absolute, complete, untenable garbage. The second piece of advice was, establish yourself in the best way that you possibly can, and then find somebody to champion you, to be your mentor, to help guide you. And I was like, brilliant. Like, I was like, well, I've done these short films. I did this. I was like, I think I'm the right candidate. Like, oh my God. So I scurried out of the theater and I went and I stood in the hallway and I was like, so when she came through, I was like, hey, sorry to bother you, but I quickly described what I've been doing and how I thought that, like, based on what she was saying, I'd be a really good candidate. And I was like, I don't want anything. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. I just want, like, your input on what I'm doing. Am I doing the right thing? Like, should I do this or that? And she was like, she literally said to me, I am not interested in mentoring people who want to be directors. So she was like on stage saying one very specific thing. And then in the hallway, I'm like, I just heard you, and I'm the only one out here. I'm the only one who thought to run out and bother you and ask you, like, I think I'm the one. And she was like, how dare you approach me with this? So the question, I think, was like, why aren't women doing something about this? Because I think a lot of women think it's a zero-sum game, and that if I do a good job, then they don't get to do a good job. And this is natural human self-preservation, and it's just a little short-sighted. I think that if they really thought about it, they'd realize that I couldn't possibly take their job. They couldn't possibly take my job. Like, Vanessa and I are both horror filmmakers, but we cannot even begin to make the same type of movie. Or like, if somebody was like, can you make a Western? I'd be like, no, but Vanessa can. Like, so.
Well, I hope I can. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like, I think, you know, it's this mindset of somehow success for me is failure for you.
Yeah.
And I don't think that everybody, like, there's plenty of room in the sandbox. And I think we get a lot more done if we could be supporting each other. You know, I was talking to someone recently, and you know, they were talking about, and you know, I have noticed this a lot with like my male filmmaker friends. They seem to have this tribe that they just help each other out constantly on films, and they're able to pull stuff off with no money because they have everything there. And I'm like, I don't have that. Like, people want me to pay them, and I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Where will you guys come help me? Because I would help you. And you know, it's just this weird thing. And I think if honestly, like, we could just get together a little bit more and be like, look, we would do so much better together. Like, I will help you on your film. Help me on mine, and let's stay together and let's go make some really awesome films and keep building this tribe of amazing artists. You know, I mean, that's kind of idealistic, but I mean, that's how I view things, and that's how I want it to be, and that's how I approach.
And that was, I was going to ask you the same thing, Vanessa, is what was your challenges as a director in, you know, this women lacking world that we live in?
I haven't been given, you know, I haven't gotten any opportunities to do anything outside of my own, you know, stuff that I'm creating. And that in itself is extremely challenging. I think any independent filmmaker would probably say that. And the biggest challenge is funding. It costs money, and I think it's a bunch of bullshit when I hear filmmakers being like, "Oh, I made a feature for, you know, $200." You did not.
No, you
like
didn't. Yeah.
There's some. I'm sorry, I'm being interrupted by someone. Yes.
It's really weird because we can't see.
Okay.
No, we can.
It's nighttime.
Hello, child.
That's not for you, though. Thanks.
Now his body disappears.
Do I take any medicine or anything?
No, you're all medicined up. This is live right now.
Ah, that's great.
Oh,
Holy torsos, Batman.
I know.
Oh, I love it.
On the
I love
Zoom.
it.
Good
It's
night,
reality.
buddy. I love you. It's
real.
what happens. This is life. Good night, buddy. Sweet dreams.
Good night, buddy.
Good night, buddy. Sweet dreams.
Good night, buddy.
Brush your teeth. Brush your teeth.
Take your medicine.
Yeah. Brush your teeth.
And
Eat
I've
all your prunes.
Lost my train of thought.
Great.
You were telling me about your challenges.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. That, no.
Besides the
I mean, that's, you know, it's hard sometimes.
but that's another
That in
challenge
itself,
too. Right?
it is trying to find that balance.
Funding.
Because this can be a 24-hour job trying to just, I mean, anything. I mean, even outside of money, it's trying to find those resources and get attention and exposure. I mean, part of this is why we launched, you know, the Women in Horror Film Festival, was to try to showcase, you know, these amazing filmmakers and artists and teams, and to say, you know, look, go watch their stuff. It's good. We're trying to help get them discovered. I hope they do.
Sad
Certainly helped me.
I remember watching my first horror movie, and you know how, and actually it was Hellraisers, the first one. That was my beginning, and I had nightmares for weeks. I was young. I had nightmares for weeks, but I've always wondered. You know, we live in a society that still devalues women, still devalues their work, still places them in a place of, you know, you're supposed to be a caregiver, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And even if you want to go and do this, we're not going to support you. And it's very sad to see that. So I commend you, because it has to be so tough to go out there every day knowing that you've kind of got a rock there that you have to move around to do anything, but yet you still get up every day and do it, and you make fabulous stuff.
Thank you, Christy. On the other hand, if they think that they can stop us, they can eat a whole big massive bag of dicks, because they are wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
A barrel of dicks.
Yeah.
I don't know what the street value is of a barrel of dicks, but it may be cost prohibitive.
Google it. I'm curious. No, but you know, it's one of those things where I think the real inequality is, you know, you can kind of have an inexperienced male filmmaker get a shot. He might fail. They're going to give him another shot. You kind of have one chance as a woman. The moment you screw up, you make that mistake, and it's like, nah, told you. Let's get this guy.
Yeah, we were always expecting you to fail. Thank you for proving us right.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of want to have that ability to fail and succeed at the same rate.
There's a really nasty thing that I think it's all, you know, I was watching this show. You guys know who W. Camus Bell is?
Nope.
No.
W. Camus Bell is a writer, comedian, social commentator, and he's been on like the Daily Show and stuff. He's African American. He's out of San Francisco. He's got a show on CNN right now called, I think it's the United Shades of America.
Oh yes.
I've heard of this.
And he did a whole thing on race. And he was talking to some other people who are sociologists on this, and they're talking about the iceberg of racism. And one of the biggest problems that we have as white people is that we see the tip of the iceberg, which is the white supremacists, the neo-Nazis, the hateful people that are punching people in the street, all of that stuff. And we go, that's racism. Whereas there is this huge iceberg underneath the water, which has nothing to do with hate. And that was one of the things that they talked about. It's nothing to do with hate. It has to do with a system. And I'll wait till Simone comes back, because I want to talk to something that I've been thinking about a lot, which has to do with how we learn what we think is good in art, in fashion, in music, in literature, and how all of these mindsets come from small pockets of people who happen to be there at the right time, who were the creators of it. And a lot of the walls that go up, I don't think come out of hate. I think they come out of a system of laziness, or a system of, you know, this is the easiest, softest
It's
way.
inherent.
It's inherent.
It's inherent because they've learned it, and they can't unlearn it. And then they pass it on to their children, and they continue the cycle. But slowly we are having less and less. And I hate to say this because it's being mean, but sometimes I think that once the baby boomer generation is, you'll start seeing more change.
Well,
that's not mean. That's logistical. That's strategic.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I'll be interesting to see what happens in the course of history, because there was a time, everything that I'm hearing right now was said by the baby boomers.
I know.
Because it used to be the people from
Right,
the 50s and stuff.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. Although, do I think that they're not a problem? Fuck no. Huge fucking nightmare. But at the same point, what I was talking about, Simone, I wanted to have you back here before I went down this path, was when we were talking about racism, W. Camus Bell and a few other sociologists were in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is considered the most liberal city in Pennsylvania, and it's surrounded by the red of Pennsylvania. And yet it's the worst place for Black people to live. And they're like, how does this happen? How do you have this place that's so radically, liberal, and yet at the same point you die in certain areas of the city if you're Black? And so they talked about the idea of how you have this iceberg idea of racism. You have the white supremacists and everything, which is out of the water that we all see, the tip of the iceberg. And that's, for white people, it's a cognitive dissonance in a way. We go, that's bad people. That's the nasty people. And the thing is, there's this huge iceberg underneath the water, and none of that, and what W. Camus Bell and these other people said is, it's not hate motivated. It's purely a system that's been there, that has been there so long that nobody even recognizes. It's so ingrained. And I think I was thinking about this with art, because how fashion is, how film is, how literature is. If you can literally look back at like what happened with modern cinema and its 3 film school classes, De Palma, Spielberg, Coppola, all these guys, NYU, USC, UCLA, all happening at the same time. All those guys lived together in Malibu in the same cabin, and they became what cinema was for several decades. And they were friends, and they helped each other. That's what friends do. You have a network right there. It's worse with critics. For decades, 5 critics basically ruled the roost and told us what a good film was. That was, we got our film sense. We got Cahiers de Cinema. We had Godard and Truffaut figuring out what cinema language was, and we followed that. Who knows how many people got trampled underneath what our idea of cinema language is, right? How many exploitation filmmakers never made it because they were not of that mantle? And I've had this conversation with people about how a lot of the exclusion has nothing to do with hate, and it's just purely, this is how things are done. And I've had arguments with people about women filmmakers because they'd be like, well, there are no, like, what's his name from Blumhouse? Well, there are no women filmmakers that seem to want to make movies. We have money and they're just not. And it's like, I can't believe you fucking said that, dude.
Can I just interject really fast? And
please.
I'm 1 degree separated from Jason Blum. I know a person who knows him. They're friends. So when Bugs was, before it went to the Women in Horror Film Festival. So this was about the same time that he was like, I don't know about any female horror filmmakers. It was like right before then, actually. We sent it off to them because we were like, maybe maybe Blumhouse wants to distribute our film. So because of this 1 degree of separation, I was able to get, Jason Blum wrote back to his like vice president of acquisitions or like development or something like that. He was like, hey, Ryan, the guy's name was Ryan. He was like, hey, Ryan, please watch this film. And Ryan was like, okay, boss. So then Ryan went off and he watched it. Interpretation was mine. It was an email, so I put that on there. But he did say, okay, boss. So he watches it, he comes back and he's like, yo, that was really great. Thank you so much. We love this film, but the only thing we're doing right now we're only picking up things that can go for a theatrical release. So like, well, this is great and you are great. We obviously, like, no one ever thought Bugs was going to be a theatrical release. That is, it's an hour and 6 minutes long. Like, no.
Right.
So I love that they were like, we just don't know of any horror. And I was like, but you watched my movie. You watched my movie. Like, you have my email address. Like, what do you mean you don't know? So even if you didn't even have a Google, we've talked before.
Right.
Like, we have a dialogue going. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Sorry, Blumhouse. I love you, Blum. If you want to distribute my films or bring us up, we love you. No beef. No beef.
Yeah.
And I give them credit where credit's due. I almost want to support them in ways because there are so many people who are coming out now going, why is horror suddenly political? Horror's always been political. Go fuck yourself. It's always been political. Just because you're not in the same frequency of politics anymore does not mean that it is more political. Now, there are movies that are more bald about it, that they don't keep the subtext in the sub. But at the same point, it's always been that way. And you can go back. I like to say that even exploitation films, go to the drive-in movies because they need to know what pisses people off, to press the buttons to get you to come and watch. So they're always going to be topical in what's going on at any given moment. And it drives me crazy. But it also drives me crazy the things that I hear people say, especially when it comes down to women. They're like, talking about how confrontational, Me Too is going to do nothing but hurt women in filmmaking. And I'm like, how? Why would it be painful? And they're like, well, people have been able to work with this before. I said, you know what? Lucille Ball did nobody any fucking favors. Betty Davis did nobody any fucking favors because they played ball, right? How many people did they help? They were one person. They were one entity in a major time period. And the thing is, if they played ball and they gave it as good as whatever star was fucking them that day or screwing with them that day, great. They've got a great story. Betty Davis has a great story, but she didn't help anybody, right? In the long run, she couldn't help anybody. And what she did is she set a precedent that what you needed to do was play ball that way. And that's the thing that I think is really upsetting, because people will say, well, why Catherine Bigelow, did action films, did all this stuff. And it's like, there's room for more than one type of person, right? There's more than room for one type of guy, and there should be more than room for one type of woman. Yes.
Sandwich.
I have thoughts. Sandwich. No, not really sandwich, just thoughts.
Right.
So what are we talking about? Betty Davis and Lucille Ball?
Mm-hmm.
So these the ladies?
Yes.
So it reminds me of, I believe it was like Dean Martin, or it was somebody in the Rat Pack who was like, I won't play this venue unless Sammy Davis Jr. can also play this venue. Right? Like they had the ability to stand up for what they believed in because they were men. Like, I don't, so like
very popular men.
Very extraordinarily popular men. You couldn't just cancel Dean Martin by then. Like, I'm sorry, but like, no. So, but like, what if Lucille Ball and or Betty Davis knew that by speaking up, they would and again, I'm not arguing that they shouldn't have spoken up. I'm just suggesting that it might have been a lot easier for other people at other times to do that, and that they might have felt that if they had spoken up, they would have compromised the very little tiny baby amount of ground that they'd snatched from the grasp of the patriarchy with difficulty, that they would be putting it at risk by saying something, by not just keeping on with what they were doing, by not just accomplishing what they had. If they were a Dean Martin, they could have supported a Sammy Davis Jr.
Right. I agree. I agree. And it's not like they were evil. It's that whole thing of, but they created a precedent, right? Self-preservation causes a precedence because the unthinking pricks that are in charge could care less about what her little piece was. All they know is 1 + 1 = 2. And so they sit there and they go, well, shit, she stayed quiet. He stayed quiet. They stayed quiet. What's your problem? So it's fucked because the system is loaded. There's no win at that point, but the win is surviving that, right? Being able to remember that history, bringing that up, going to that next step, allowing the next group of people to go a little bit further. I saw a comedian who was talking about the Gen X, or not Gen X, he goes, millennials. He goes, God, I hate you guys. And then everybody laughs. But then he goes, but the thing is, what I got to say is that you are the most progressive group of people ever. And everybody applauds. He goes, but then again, every generation is the most progressive generation that's ever been there.
And if you're not, you're doing it wrong.
If you're not,
I don't know. We're Gen Xers are ignored.
I believe I'm a Gen Xer, and I have a real problem with my Gen Xers who are trying to pretend that somehow we're ignored and that we're somehow not responsible for the last 25 fucking years.
Oh, no. I think we are totally responsible.
We are so fucking responsible.
We definitely are.
And there's that
I agree that I totally agree.
Yeah, we get away with so many jokes about, hey, we're just over here chilling out. Yeah, we were just chilling out an awful lot. Where we
The
are.
housing market was great.
Yeah, right. So I think what it comes down to is I believe that we are always as progressive as our comfort zones. We go right to the edge of comfort zones. We have dragons we want to slay, but we are blind to other dragons. But the next generation starts where we've killed the last dragon. And they go, well, wait a second. You did this, but this needs to be done. And we're like, well, I don't know. That doesn't feel right. But the next generation can go that way. And that's what I think about with like Lucille Ball and people like that. You need to know that history. You need to know where they took that ball to. Then you need to see where the next generation took that ball. And they may have fumbled. They may have fucked up. Maybe you don't want to look at Jane Fonda fondly, whatever it is. But the next lineup is going to be there because of what happened before that. But you can't forget that stuff. You can't be bamboozled by the people who will say, yeah, well, just play the game, play along.
But don't you agree that that it's time to stop just pushing the ball a little forward?
Oh yeah.
And it's time to take this ball and rip it apart, literally, and just expose it all. I mean, people are complaining about the riots. People are complaining about the violence. Okay, yes, most of that violence is done by people that aren't protesting to begin with, but we do this every time there's a situation that happens. The Me Too movement came out. There was a huge uproar. The men got mad because the men were exposed. They didn't want to be exposed. Women finally found their voice. They said, hey, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. And then somebody shut them up. And then this is what happens. And they get shut up. And then the next group comes in and then they get shut up. And I think what happens is that we don't turn around and say, no, I'm not going to shut up, and keep yelling. And I think this is the time that we really need to keep pushing and keep yelling and keep screaming, because if we don't, it's going to be another, 40 years, 50 years before change happens again. And that scares me for my grandchildren.
Yeah, I think the time is now. And the reason I think the time is now is because nobody has anything to lose. We are in a pandemic and everything is falling apart.
Right.
We are sitting in the shit. There has been no convenience to slowly waft people's outrage away. So we have 57, 58 days of protest in Portland and in different areas. Pittsburgh's the same way. Many different places. This could have gone away, but the outrage, which normally just happens in like 6, 7 cities across the country, it was in 50 states in multiple cities, because we are in a pandemic and everything is falling apart. And we have the focus that normally isn't there. We are normally running to get to that last scrap of food. We are running to that job. We are constantly getting kicked in the ass to go to the next thing. We are moving too fast. Lots of people are feeling it right now. How did I move so quickly? I don't even want to move again. I've been 4 months of not moving to that speed. I look at San Francisco and it's like, I can't even believe the city. It's scary sometimes how few cars there are on the roads and stuff. This is a time for reflection. And I mentioned this on my show, which was, it's like we have a Greco-Roman wrestler that landed on us and has us in a pinned position. And we're like, okay, yeah, I tap out. It's like, no. It is taking us past our comfort. We are people who like to say how much we can be punished. We are now being punished beyond that. And with that, we are being humbled. We are finding out how fragile this culture has been. One fiscal quarter, and this country is ready to shoot guns at people to get them to go the fuck back to work. That's how bad this thing's been running, folks. But we've been able to dismiss it because we had something to lose, right? We had just enough of a carrot and stick. And we're at a point now where people are out there getting shot in the face with rubber bullets and getting back up, brushing their teeth the next day and going the fuck back out there. That hasn't happened. So I don't know if it's the idea that people are more into it. I don't know if you can be more into it than what happened up to Kent State.
I think people are more angry.
I think the anger has nowhere to go. And I think there's enough of people. And I think it's enough. I mean, I was talking about this today to somebody. The Washington Redskins changed their name. That may sound silly and small, but that's the sign of something big, because that is pop culture. That is symbolism. And this country lives on symbolism.
And how long did it take for that to happen, too?
Oh, yeah, forever, right? So
Wasn't
now
this
it
like
has.
4 years ago?
Yeah. Pressure from the sponsors because people are holding people accountable. And there's a lot of anger over that. And that's all great, all well and good. But I think it's real. And I hope that we keep. Here's the thing, right? I've been around for a while. Us Gen Xers, us creaky old Gen Xers. And I've seen this. I've seen the run up to the hill, right? And we just need to get over that fucking fence for someone to and I think we're going to bloody ourselves, but it might happen here. I'm hoping that the pressure does not relent. You know, and you can see that it's taking its toll because things that have never been talked about are being talked about. Holy shit. Even with a terrible name like defund the police, people even talking in that concept has never happened before. Never. And the idea that it's actually getting there, it's exposing so many prejudices. And it's an amazing thing. And I'm interested and scared to see where it's going to go because it's going to get scary.
I hate to say this, but I have to go to work in the morning. Well, I actually have to just get up and go to my desk over there in the morning. Are
you going to wear pants?
Yeah. I'm just going to say yeah, just in case anybody's watching.
Wear 2 pairs in protest.
I don't know.
There you go.
I'm going to wear a pair less than I was going to wear, which was already 0. So I'm going to be skinning myself alive at my desk.
Oh my God. Necro pants.
But I wanted to leave with one thing. So one thing that I really thought was really great is the New York Times has a 7 issue, 7 days, and it's a great read. I think we're on day 4 now, and basically it is all about women and what we are seeing during the pandemic and how women are finding out, that they're being stuck with so many different things, that the true inequality between men and women. And so each day they talk about an issue, whether it's wages or discrimination at jobs. So definitely look at that, read that. I thought it was, I think we're on day 4 today. And thank you for letting me be on here. You're all just amazing.
Thank you.
Vanessa, Simone, thank you for, representing the women in this field. Horror is one of my favorites, so I'll definitely catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a great night, y'all.
You
do
too.
well.
Bye.
Gone.
You get out of here.
And it makes a happy little sweet sound. It's like ling. Can the other people hear that or just us?
I think probably just us. They're like,
Oh,
once
they missed
again,
out on the sweet sound.
how many glasses of wine are they on now? That's
I just had the
Wow.
one. This has been water. What this one that you see?
oh yeah, this is
no.
water.
I make my own schedule, so I will drink as much wine
This
as
was
I like.
liquor and it's empty.
I have
water.
no children. I have nowhere to be tomorrow.
I've got nowhere to be and the kids are asleep, so I'm
I got a message that my parents have signed off. Well, no, I
wait, so
did
they're
get
not-
that message.
They're not watching.
They're
so
gone.
we can talk about them.
So
All the secrets.
we gave you all the time in the world, Vanessa. What's the remake?
Oh crap! You came back. Oh, I don't know.
I forgot.
I
to
don't
ask
know.
that
I don't
question.
want to
That's
answer
not
this
fair.
question. I'll.
Okay, fair enough. It's not like we haven't talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see. I think
Yeah.
people have stopped being shy to speak up, says Carrie. I think people sorry, I lost my the peyote smoothie that I've been drinking has finally kicked in.
Scott's been sharing this wine with me.
Yes. Carrie says, I think people have stopped being shy to speak up. I think people have not been shy to speak up for a long time. I think we're just at a point where enough people can be heard and the frequency is up and there's nowhere to hide. You know, I think, and yet we still have people do 2 sides to every story. We're in a world now where you can literally pick what news you're listening to, what music everything is picked. So it's so hard to get what the real truth is. And I've actually sat with myself soberly trying to figure, am I wrong? How could so many people that I know that are people that I've respected be so off?
And what are these people off on? Are they like, I'm anti-mask? Like, what do you mean?
Okay, yeah,
Are they anti-science? Because like that's a different, larger conversation.
More about some of the politics, but it's so hard to disseminate between politics. And so, like for me, I go, all right, maybe I'm, but I live with a scientist, so fuck him. I already know. I live with a scientist. I know that this is not fake. And I don't listen to those people. But the ones that I get, sometimes it's where we're talking about where do we need to go to get an answer? What is the way that is going to change people's minds? How much is damage that's being done? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I of course, you guys know that I work in narrative fiction. I work on horror and horror comedy pieces. But we also spend quite a bit of time working on science stuff. I was an amateur scientist for the first half of my life. As you know, my dad is in artificial intelligence. I wanted to what is it when you do something at college? It is your major. I wanted to co-major in, thank you, I did that myself.
Like, learn.
Got your learn on.
So I wanted to co-major in chemistry, but they were like, you literally cannot do acting in chemistry because you cannot be in two places at once, like 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. Like, it's just physically not possible. So anyways, I really wanted to science, and I justified all of this, and I hope Lisa knows this because she would think it's funny. I justified all of this by saying to myself that I would play a scientist on television in future, maybe an astronaut or maybe a chemist, like, yeah. So this is how I justified to my parents and everybody that I should go to NYU for acting instead of science, which I was completely and legitimately capable of doing, and I probably should have done. Fine. So anyways, so I have this like light education. So I've done a couple documentaries like on biodiversity and things like that. So one of the things I've gone to a couple different conferences like AAAS and things like that. And the thing that scientists are missing in general is storytelling. Is the thing that we can do.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like I'm sure that Lisa talks about this all the time, but so scientists' job is to report the data. They're not supposed to tell me what the data means. They're not supposed to be like, the data means you should do X, Y, and Z. They report the data. They often feel it's outside of their job to say anything other than the data.
Right.
But the problem is we don't absorb things that don't have story. We are story-driven animals. Yeah. So if you want us to retain what you're saying, you have to give it a story. You have to tell us, and by story, I mean, why does it matter? Why should I give a shit about this? Right. So like I've coached like myself and the company Reagency, which is a science PR company with the idea is that like science is a PR problem. It's like if these people, if scientists could be educated on and they would be willing to tell stories, they would reach a lot more people. But since their job is to share data, it's there's this gap between what we understand and what we're willing to accept.
Yeah, they have a problem with telling stories. They're also not socially strong in many ways, but they're also held to a standard of storytelling. And that's the thing. Scientists are not held to a standard that makes sense for them, right?
I know, I yawned. I'm sorry.
It ends up being where it's kind of like people going, geez, how many different ways are they going to... They're telling me 6 feet here, wear a mask here, don't wear a mask here. What the hell? They don't know what they're talking about. No, this is how science works. You constantly have to try out and test things. This is something that we've never seen before. Yes, it's a bug like other bugs that we've seen, but there are many different permutations of this thing. There is not a cure for it. There is no vaccination for it. They're searching in the dark, trying to take history and moving that into the science. And people don't hold them in that thing. They're thinking like it's going to be the same kind of thing that you would have in a boardroom for a computer company. Well, by this quarter, we need to have a beta. No, that's not how it works. This is science. But people have lost the ability to understand that. We have not become technically clever or intelligent in the sciences. We've lost that. Now, before we go any further, I just noticed that director Brittany Brock is in the audience. And Brittany, if you're on, I would love to have you come on and talk for a little bit. It is pinned in the comments, the Zoom thing, if you're still on.
Brittany.
Yeah, come on, Brittany. We love your work. We love your work.
Brittany.
So come on in. But yes, I'm glad to hear that you're doing what you're doing, Simone, because that's something that drives me crazy. Living with a scientist and seeing how people deal with this stuff, and also the idiot scientists, the ones, the few that want all of the attention, that will go, no, you know how you get this? You story tell. And then they tell an absurd story and they get out there, and that's what the news runs with.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're storytelling
Yeah.
consumption machines.
Yeah. And it's like when you disregard and disrespect the sciences in front of me, I get so crazy because I know what peer review means. I know how hard it is. Like, we're in entertainment, right? How many times have you heard the word brilliant or genius? You will never hear that in a room full of scientists. Scientists will say
Well, it doesn't
elegant.
mean anything.
Yeah. It doesn't mean anything. So we're all like, oh, brilliant. He's a genius. He's the biggest compliment that you get as a scientist is that was an elegant solution. Elegant.
Oh, well, that's an amazing compliment. And my favorite thing about science is not that scientists seek to necessarily be right, but they seek to be correct. So if I were a scientist, if I had gone this other path and I did science and I came up with this idea and I did experiments and I submitted it to peer review, and scientists came along and they proved that I was not just wrong, but deeply wrong. Right. My reaction is, oh, thank God you've sorted that out, that I was so fucking wrong on this. Like, thank you. Like, we're now closer to the right answer. And like, I find that to be this sense of community around scientists just trying to find the answers. There's no ego involved. Like, I find that to me is outside of maybe like visual effects in After Effects, is like the closest to magic that you can really get. It's like people trying to really understand, and that's everybody's general goal. I love it. I that's what draws me to science. There are right answers, and we can all agree on what they are, and we can all agree that we didn't know what they were before. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And that's it's what drives me crazy is that you know the politicians and certain storytellers who like to say that they're news people know the kryptonite of scientists. In other words, a scientist is not going to say yes until yes is the real answer. They will say, well, we don't know. We can't. And it's like, oh, indecisive. So they play into that, and it drives me so crazy. But you're not going to get a scientist. I mean, I would hate to see the rock and roll scientist, right? Like, what's his name? What was that movie? Buckaroo Banzai. Comes out and starts punching guys. Hey, tell me I'm a scientist.
I mean, like, if I was a scientist and I'd spent my entire life and like all this money on education and I was an expert on something, and somebody was like, well, I did my research on YouTube. So yeah. I'd be like, we are going to fist fight now because apparently knowledge means nothing. And now I have to murder you because that's the only way to prove that I know the things. Like, how dare you?
Yeah. And then that's the problem, right? I had a friend who, unfortunately, I don't know if we're friends anymore because we had a major falling out over this kind of thing. And he was, no, it wasn't Trump, but my good friend, Daryl Trump. But now
Daryl.
There was this conversation where he was upset because someone was telling him that he needed smarter friends. His problem was that he needed to be around people who read, and that he was not surrounding himself with well-read people. And he took that as an offense because there is this thing that we've been taught that intelligence is arrogance. That intelligence is a problem, that intellectuals are a problem. No, pseudo-intellectuals are a huge problem. And pseudo-intellectuals are all over the place. And they're not even particularly smart, and they're pseudo-intellectuals, telling you tales of Pizzagate and things like that. It was just pseudo-intellectualism run wild. But there is this thing that we're taught as Americans especially, that people who say that they're the experts are people that you have to proceed with caution around. And it breaks my heart that we're at that point at this juncture.
Scott,
yes,
you might be old enough to be able to answer this question.
Oh no, that's a hard. This is a nightmare. Okay.
No, this is a knowledge. There was a particular
the feudalism
president.
Papers.
French Revolution. What? No, there was a president was running, and I can't remember who it was, and the way he sort of got defeated was by being called an egghead.
Mm. I'm not sure necessarily which one was the egghead.
But like that was sort of like the beginning of this like anti-intellectualism. And then I remember when I was like in middle school and like even in high school, there would be like dudes who would talk to me who would be like trying to impress me by being like, I would never read. And I was like, ew.
Right.
Yikes, dude. Yeah. So like this, and I still like a couple of years ago, I was like on like Tinder or whatever, and there was profiles that were like, good vibes only, also no books. Like,
right. Great. Yeah. There we go. Flip. That's easy. But I'm not sure when it started. I honestly feel that it kind of started around the end of World War II. I think that for some reason we blamed the scientists for the nuclear bomb and not the generals, not the presidents, not the senators that demanded it, because the genie was out of the bottle. If you look at science fiction films from then on, and horror films, scientists are the nuts, right? Scientists always go a little bit off the rails. And for a long time, the military guys were the guys that were putting things back into order. Not John Carpenter, Howard Hawks' The Thing from Another Planet is a great example of that. Movie from 1950. And the scientist is like an idiot. Oh, we've got to examine this thing. We've got to, but the guys that get together and save the world are the Air Force guys, right? And so we've had this thing of the dangers of allowing scientists. And I think Mengele may have been the most damaging thing to science and medicine that ever happened.
Yeah, the Nazis were pretty bad for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, even ballroom dancing, even fucked up ballroom dancing, they're so horrible.
In any conceivable way that you could imagine, the Nazis really just fucked on it all.
That's right, exactly. The price of meat was great until the Nazis. No, whatever.
Yeah, jokes aside, Mengele was
I think
really bad.
Yeah, I think something happened there where at some point we just decided we could no longer trust. I've always felt bad, like Oppenheimer and guys like that. I Am Created Death. All of the things. He was haunted by what he ended up doing. And yes, we're always going to have this amazing conflict in ourselves that the Japanese may have caused millions of more people to die if we didn't do that. Yet at the same time, we are the only power that has ever dropped a nuclear weapon on human beings. And so that is a cognitive dissonance that I don't think we've ever gotten over. And for some reason, we attack the scientists. You're the ones who allowed our base interests to actually become real. How dare you? Yeah.
My new friend, James Sabata, that I've just recently met.
Love
Vanessa,
James. Yes.
Is telling me that he thinks it's Adlai Stevenson. His followers were called eggheads in the 50s.
Adlai Stevenson.
When he ran for the president, in 50s. Yep. So that's from James. Thanks, James.
Yeah. Tell James I said hi. We're friends too. We met at TUSCon last year.
He must be listening to this because he's weighing in on the conversation in my message. So I think he heard you say hi.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself. No.
Don't you dare talk about
James.
You do not talk about my new friend James like that. How dare you?
He's awesome. Have you listened to his show? He's got the.
I haven't. I just met him today. I literally met him like 5 minutes before this started tonight. Vanessa was nice enough to introduce us.
Yeah, he's got a great show.
I think I'm going to be on it. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, there he is.
There you go. You can come on in.
Yeah.
Get in here, James.
Yeah.
Join us.
Yeah. Don't sit there being some kind of stalker.
He's probably like, wow, I messaged Simone directly, so I did not get involved with this. And now here she is. I've never met her. I've never talked to her in my life.
The worst.
And she's like calling me out on this. It's like, get in here. He's probably like, wow, really rethinking on whether I want to have you on my podcast.
The worst case of name dropping ever. Reverse name dropping. He's like, oh shit. I've been name dropped, and I know everybody here. So we're all fighting on who likes James the most. He's like,
love it.
Read his book, by the way, Fat Camp.
Yes, he mentioned that. I'm gonna have to. It's on the list now. My list is on. Is he coming in?
Like the plague.
Here he
like
is.
the plague.
Hey.
Ding
Hey.
dong.
Hey.
Oh, he's a Blake.
Yeah.
That's not a real
First name
lake.
dropping. Wow.
It's a fake lake.
Sorry for sharing what you said to me. It's just that you were the only one who knew what I was talking about, and I wanted the group to know that I knew what I was talking about when I was talking about eggheads.
Yeah, Adelaide Stevenson, that sounds about right, because that would be
It was
around that
really. I was terrified I would get it wrong. I thought I would get it wrong, and then Scott would call me out on it. So.
No, Scott didn't know, so you're good no matter how you slice it.
Yep. I was like, no, all I could remember was, I remember all the different things that have, and it's almost always the Democratic guy, right? It's the Democrat that gets
Of
taken out.
course.
And it interests me that out of all the things that have happened, no matter what anybody out there thinks that the president of the United States is right now, the one thing that has been the chink in the armor is they got TikToked and turned into an asshole by a bunch of 16-year-olds. That's the thing that has broken him down. He's aged over fucking night.
That is my worst nightmare, is to be attacked by children on TikTok.
Yeah. And me, I'm like
Holy
TikTok.
shit.
So I love it, because everything else people will just accept. But if the politician, if the guy who's a conservative looks stupid at any point or weak, suddenly he's no good anymore. It happened with Bush after the riots in LA. They asked him about the price of bread, and he's like, I don't know, $30, and everybody's like, holy shit.
What could a banana cost? $10.
Yeah, right. And it's like, holy shit, this guy's out of it. And now, no matter what he did, him sitting there beating his chest going, I've got 1 million people and 7,000 showed, and he looks like a fool. Suddenly they're all distancing from him. And that's what it takes. I think there's plenty of people who are.
Okay. I hope you're right.
But I don't, do I think we're safe? Fuck no. But at the same point, I think there is a distance.
Are we safe?
Fuck no. Safe. I don't even know what that word means anymore.
Right?
We're all gonna die.
Yeah. How is that even spelled? Yeah. How is that even spelled at this point? But you will see that if you look through time, I'm trying to, Dukakis looks so silly in a tank. Dukakis looks silly in a tank. He was ruined.
Well, he yelled yeehaw. I mean, what do you expect?
Muskie cried. He cried, and they were like, "Cry, baby."
Dean, who was that guy who was like, yeah?
Yeah, and that was Howard Dean.
Everybody
overnight.
Yeah. He was a Democrat.
Yeah, all these guys.
They isolated his sound on radio, and they ruined his campaign by going, yeah, over and over again.
It's amazing how simple it is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we have a cheetah. All right, I'm done.
Dean has to wake up every day pissed off at the fucking world when he looks at the news.
If I was Howard Dean, I would make the my ringtone, and I would have people just call. Like, I would just be like in public, like, yes, like over, and just be like, do you want me to be your president? Yes, like, and then just be like.
So isn't it great that horror is universal?
Howard Dean really got a good dose of it,
Yeah. So James Sabata, author James Sabata, author podcaster James Sabata. What's your question?
Do I have any questions? You made me come here.
I know. It's sort of I shouted at him, and I was the one who. It's my fault.
Maybe you have a question, Scott. No.
Yeah, I know. I'm just I'm agog. I've been trying so hard, and I'm just failing today. It's just terrible. No good questions. But what was it? Cognitive dissonance. That's what I was going to talk to you about. So I saw that you have watched The Birds, which I think the film The Birds is a masterpiece in cognitive dissonance. The idea of all those birds on the monkey bars in the playground with that constantly incessant meow, 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 the kids singing over and over. That's like such great cognitive dissonance. It is so unnerving. And tell me why that movie fucked you up so much. This movie that's 30, 50 years old.
I've spent my entire life terrified of birds. And it starts with their eyes because they have no souls. Eyes are the window to the soul, right? But when you look at a bird,
ass eyes.
They don't look like normal eyes. They're like creepy ass, like a doll's eyes. They're terrible. But no, it was all the scenes of the birds like biting people's fingers, and it really fucked with me yesterday. And you know me, I watch Saw 5 while I'm eating, I'm just like,
right,
nothing. But yeah, these fucking birds biting people, and I was done, man. I had a hard time getting through.
There's so many great inserts in that movie of like little kids with their ears getting bit.
Yes.
And it's like, oh man, yeah.
Even like there's one kid like laying down and this bird's just like pecking her in the back.
Yep.
And I'm just, terrible. But no, you talk, like what women have to do in Hollywood, and Hitchcock, like the theory is that he hit on Tippy and she wouldn't follow through. And all of a sudden she got tortured for 5 days with real birds being thrown at her.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Like it goes back that far and
further than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like, we don't think of Hitchcock that way, or most people don't.
I did.
But
Hitchcock referred to actors as chattel.
Yeah.
They could be replaced as chattel.
I'm not.
And as a former actor, I have issues with that. And as a filmmaker and director, oh no, I see where you're coming from. No,
Yeah. Between him and Otto Preminger, I'm not sure who was worse with actors, and especially women. They both abused the women that were in their films.
Oh yeah. But yeah, like, like my family, for instance, they just think, oh, he's that pudgy guy who talks kind of weird, so he can't possibly be bad. Like BTK was a good looking guy. And
yeah.
I don't know. It blows my mind. So
the I forget the killer BTK, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the 3 letters stand
for. Find, torture,
kill.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that BTK. He's so hot right now.
No, he was never hot. He was like a weird, like
he was like the creepy
family guy. Yeah, church guy. Okay. Yeah, never hot. You know who else wasn't hot? Ted Bundy. Not hot. He was never hot. And his bruise was dumb as fuck. He was like, hey, college-aged woman, can you help me put my boat on my car? No, are you fucking kidding me? There's like 100 grown-ass men who play football on this campus walking around now.
Who puts a boat on a Volkswagen?
How did he get so many people? Yeah. How did he get so many people?
Because he was like how charming I am. And everyone bought it, but they were wrong.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
I mean, I don't know. I guess were people just more trusting then? Like they just had no idea that somebody could be evil and horrible and I need help. Okay.
If a man
you're a human.
With his boat, I'd be like, you are a predator.
No,
that was a weird request.
Yeah, that was.
I have to assume you want to kill me.
Yeah, I mean, that was post-Manson. We were not trusting anybody at that point.
That's true.
I think it was because he looked preppy.
It's because he was hot and he looked preppy and he had a car and there was a lot of people around and he approached one girl out of many girls. So the girl felt special. She was like, oh, I'm the one.
And we don't know how many people, we don't know how many people he went to. I always have that thing. Like I tell friends, I said, toxic people, they walk into a room, a party, and they come up to the first person they see and they go, hi, I'd like to tell you all my terrible shit. And they're like, get the fuck away from me. So they walk up to the next person. Hey, I'd like to involve you in my terrible shit. No, fuck you. And then they go over to somebody else. I have terrible shit. Can I tell? What was your terrible shit? And they find the one person. They'll just keep going effortlessly, floating around being a pollutant until they find the one person that's going to go, sure, I'll bite.
Yeah.
And then
there are reports of women who were like, what? No, that is dumb as fuck. Like, ask that man right there.
Right.
Yeah.
He's able-bodied.
Yeah. I'm not lifting a boat.
Yeah. Do I look like I can lift a boat? I'm 5 feet tall. Like, kind of feels like you want to kidnap me and cut my head off and then have sex with it. Like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, wow, what an imagination. I was just going to beat you in the face of the rock, but I like where you're going with that.
Yeah, let's go. Serial killer comedy hour.
Yeah, I was just going to say, people are just turning in and like, wow, these guys are dark. There's some darkness we've got going here.
Well, 6 of our viewers are disgusted.
Yes.
This is what happens when I show up somewhere.
They're the ones that aren't disgusted. They're still here. Good gravy.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, give us
serial
more.
Killers?
Just taking notes, crossing off, ask about a boat, like.
What else did they do to their decapitated skulls?
Yeah.
Soup tureen, always a soup tureen. Whenever went in soup tureen. Anyway, it's now late. And I think
I feel
we've had I can tell.
We've had a good run.
It was a good run. We survived.
I'm the worst. I try so hard, but like I can feel it, and then I can't control the yawns.
Like,
and I'm like, I'm listening.
You also have like children in your background that are like, I need my medicine.
Yeah.
God, I feel terrible.
No, oh my God, it's so sweet.
Yeah.
And to clarify
Just like appeared out of
to
nowhere.
I know
6
that's
viewers, my son has an ear infection. It's not just like on random meds, but I'm digging in the cabinet for, stuff.
We've had these conversations.
Authorized.
Hey, Vanessa, can I have my meds?
Yeah, who wants meds?
Me and Vanessa will be like doing a prep call like middle of the week, and she'll have her background up like that, and all of a sudden, like some kind of crazy entity, her son comes in going, and will just suddenly appear. I'll be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Out of the walls.
It was wild to see him come in and out and like little bits of him.
Well, what cracks me up the most is like whenever I get ready to do this, I'm like, okay, so this is live, don't come in. I'm going to shut my door. Daddy's here. Like you can ask him for things.
That other adult, he's in there.
Yeah, no, it's, hey, I'm like, where's your father? Why aren't you talking to him?
And so where is he? Do we know? Is he
with him?
He's probably like, ask your mom.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I don't have.
Drive her crazy one more time.
Clearly, I don't have all the answers. I have a couple.
Well, Simone, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to promote or anything before we sign off?
Yes, I do. As of today, Bugs is available on my Vimeo channel, the Magic Dog Vimeo channel, because I feel that the price that Amazon has determined our film should be at $2.99 is too high. So on Vimeo, you can watch it for 99 cents.
Ooh,
you can also buy it. You can buy it and own it for $10. Alternatively, a horror comedy, which I know we're fans of in this situation, is Housed. It's about 7 college students who get trapped at a house party when the apocalypse strikes. And it is a
like now.
Yeah, it's so on brand. So like it's stupid, also like 2020. It is absurd, also like 2020. There's not enough cast or characters in it, also like 2020. There's not enough diversity, also like 2020. It's like not produced well enough. It's also like 2020. So but that's free on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, just like fucking watch it. You will throw me a literal penny and you will learn something about being a really disappointed millennial during the apocalypse, which you may or may not have perspective on if you're not a millennial in our current apocalypse.
Nice.
What a sell. What a sell.
Thank you so much. I made it up. I made it up just now. Thank you, Wine.
Thank you, Wine. How about you, James, since you're here?
James.
I'm just here. I came to support you, and then you made me show up.
Don't you have this podcast?
I feel like we all yelled at James until he came in here.
He's promoting the lake life.
Yeah, sure. We have the podcast, thenecronoma.com, where we talk social commentary and horror. We just dropped 2 episodes this week. We did The Burbs because that's just a really dark horror. Wait, no. Because it's The Burbs, and I had to, right?
Right.
And then we did Becky. And Becky was ridiculously awesome. If you haven't seen it, I totally suggest it. Lulu Wilson is a 13-year-old in it, and legitimately 13, not a 35-year-old playing a 13 like Hollywood likes to do. And she just, what I love about it, she kills the way a 13-year-old would do it, because she's trying to save her family from these neo-Nazis. And one of the neo-Nazis is Kevin James, which blew my fucking mind, by the way, but he was fantastic in it.
What?
And so he captures her family, and she has to save them. And so she has these crazy kills that are just like things no one over 13 would do, because we all have this life experience where we go, that's never gonna work. And she's like, I can put all these colored pencils together and jam them through your face,
Yes.
Oh, Becky is so good. But our guest was a girl, she's 17, and she's light years ahead of me already. gorycorey.com. Her whole site is social justice and horror, and it's fucking amazing. Go check it out. Go check her stuff out, even if you don't come check out the Necronoma.com, because she's great. So yeah.
Yeah, I was on Necronoma.com. It's a good show. It's fun.
Yeah, Scott was on it. We had a great
We
time.
should all go. Let's go do it. I've invited myself.
We'll just keep this going.
What are we doing now? Let's say it's the after hours.
Are we transitioning?
Vanessa's gonna fall asleep.
James is like, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Vanessa, if it helps, my co-host falls asleep all the time. So
during the show?
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I talk too much, and then I'm like, Don, are you there? You know.
You guys have a safe word for if you talk too much?
No.
We do.
It's
sandwich.
Like, shut the fuck up. That's it.
This is the first time that sandwich has been brought out more than once. So I feel
really?
Somehow, yeah.
I think the second time was a joke. Was it?
I don't know.
I think it was mostly not so much about like talking too much, just like, you know, hey, cool sandwich. Like I have a question.
Panini.
Yeah.
Reuben on rye, please.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is a hot dog?
It's the only one you got. It's a sandwich for me.
Next question, is a gyro a sandwich? Is a
gyro.
Pita...
Gyro.
Excuse me, I'm an American and I say gyro. I'm from Maryland.
What do you got, the spinny thing you're trying to eat? It's like,
I'm sorry, I don't know what you were referring to, but I'm talking about the spinny thing that I'm trying to eat.
That's right.
Well, but the meat is on the spinny thing.
The meat is
Are
on
you talking about the spit?
Yeah.
Wow. This is what happens when we go over hour 3. This is like the outtakes.
Weird.
Yeah. This is like that extra song by Led Zeppelin. That's just the guy playing the drums going, yeah, we're done. Kind of falls off. We
could do a Beatles 9 minutes of
there you go. I got
Lennon?
Blisters on me fingers.
Well, I am the Eggman then.
Yes.
You are the walrus. Goo goo goo.
We'll just mix that and somehow make a mishmash of that and the Rolling Stones, Paint It Black. I am the walrus and I want to paint your eggs black. We'll call it.
The walrus. I would respectfully request that you do not paint my eggs any color.
Fair enough.
Don't touch my eggs. Thank you.
Oh, wine. We need more wine on this show. That's what I'm learning from this.
Are you sure it's not you need more Simone on this show?
We need more Simone.
It's fine.
We'll be talking to you about that, actually.
Yes.
And maybe James, too. We'll see.
James.
I'll just come to every episode and you guys can just yell at me. How about that?
I'm in.
Yes.
It's like, you know you're loved when you have 3 people yell at you to come on, and then we just really ignore you.
Yeah.
Right.
Then put you on the spot. What do you want? Why are you here?
Why are you here? What the fuck? What's
do you
your
have to
problem?
say?
Here, because you drank too much and you forgot you invited me.
Yeah. What the fucking
Who's you? Are you talking about me? I didn't invite you.
Yeah. Wearing some kind of Bespin Cloud City shirt. What the fuck's your problem?
James is doing a good job. Good job, James.
Yeah.
This isn't my podcast. I don't know if you're doing a good job.
This was magnificent, and thank you everybody who took the time to listen. Thanks so much, Simone and James, for coming on. And until next time, stay hell-bent.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And we're off the live stream.
Are we off? Okay, great.
Yeah. So we're now